What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. We were not here last night, but back tonight, and we'll get into all that. But first, please, if you would, hit that like button on the way in. Very much appreciated. And then we will go ahead and get started here in just a quick second. All right. What's happening? Finally catching me live. Here I am. There you are. That was bound to happen. Mary, good to see you. How are you, Mary? Hope this will end soon. I mean, I have my doubts, but I agree. It's just like I said, a story stranger than one of the stranger stories. I mean, especially with everything that is known about the case and all the resources that have been poured into the case and so on. It's baffling. And I know that there are a lot of people that feel like this case has, we're waiting for the big break or the big, and I just, I wouldn't say that I'm losing hope because that's not a good thing. But I definitely feel like this is this could end up just being a long haul situation, and that they're kind of settling in. The media. They sort of want the media off, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Prosecutors visited the house. It sounds like the FBI has done a final sweep of the house, and we'll get into all of that tonight. And we'll review the latest coverage, and I'll give you my commentary on it. But it does feel very bleak, maybe at the moment, at least to me. Um, and I just hope that I'm completely wrong. I mean, I've like you, I've kept up on this case, and it just to me for some reason feels very, very. I, would- I, I don't. I wouldn't consider it a cold case, but I would consider it. It's not burning hot, at least publicly. But to see the prosecutor, I'm sure some of you saw the prosecutors that were there. Um, which I don't know. I mean, I think that that's sort of typical, but usually, usually they would be there to see, how are we going to try this case? What are our options? Um, but it sounds like they're getting ready to turn the house back over to the family permanently, once and for all. What does that mean? I don't really know. I have my thoughts on it, but I just wish that I knew. And yesterday we weren't here, but Nancy Guthrie has also uh, excuse me, Savannah Guthrie has also issued a $1 million. Her and her family have issued a $1 million reward. Um, and I'll play a little bit of that here just in a second. Um, wow, $1 million reward. And now it's saying that the family was sort of told, maybe that it wasn't the best idea at first. And I'm going to tell you why I think that that's an odd statement by the sheriff, especially when he said that he would like to take all tips, even tips that are from aliens. That kind of that kind of bothers me uh, because they were the family got slammed by a lot of people. People were saying, "Well, guess what? I think that I couldn't believe it." They're just like, "What has the family done?" Well, apparently, they've been offering a they've been offering money or wanting to offer money for quite some time, and it was told by the sheriff that hey, we shouldn't do this. It'll lead to too many false tips and things like that. And he said that in his interviews that we watched, he said that he wanted all the tips that he could get. Every tip is viable. He wanted every tip, except he thought that the $1 million reward would generate too many fake tips. And I don't really understand that personally. If you're wanting to generate tips, why not just do it? Why not? And I don't even know if they were told the sheriff that they were going to do this. And I think at this point they didn't really care. But let's see here. Yes, they are calling the prosecutors to visit to Nancy Guthrie's home as the last sweep. Thank you for your daily updates. God bless. Yeah, you got it. I believe it was the sheriff, but let me. I didn't see Enton's show yesterday, but we can go over that. Uh, because I think he talked about it a little bit. So I'll play that first, and then go back. We got a psyoper in the house already. I am curious, and I won't. I'm not gonna belabor the point, but what is the psychological operation that you were just speaking of? What is why is it a classic psyop? What makes it a classic psyop? For what? Don't you think they would come up with something a little better? I don't know. Once again, hit that like button and share this out. I appreciate it.
So much for checking out my show. Really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. I can't believe it's now day 24 in the search for Nancy Guthrie. I'm in Nancy's neighborhood. Her house is right up behind me. A lot to get to in this episode. There's been a lot of developments over the last 24 hours. First of all, Savannah Guthrie released the new video with a $1 million reward. Saying that she will offer $1 million to anyone with information that will lead to where her mom is. And I've got new reporting about the fact that she apparently wanted to put this reward out way sooner, but there was someone who was trying to stop her from doing that. And I'm going to get into that in this episode. Also, new information on the DNA. This is not good news. This is in reference to the DNA found inside Nancy's house. That I was quite optimistic about because the sheriff said it did not belong to Nancy or anyone within her inner circle.
Now they're saying that the DNA is not even viable. Like it's. I guess when they say not viable, it's not usual or usable. Excuse me. Yeah, great. That's cool, man. Awesome. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Well, new reporting from News Nation that it is not viable, the DNA, which means that there are such issues with this DNA that they cannot even put it into the CODIS database, which is the federal database of criminals' DNA, which is just, it's not good news. I remember the sheriff wanted to send the DNA to his private lab in Florida instead of sending it to Quantico. So I'll get into the latest DNA developments, which again are not positive.
This is from yesterday, so I'm sure some of you have seen this. We're just yes.
And then
no, this is not the one from tonight.
Also, I met up with a former SWAT member who worked here in Pima County and was also a detective. He met me out here at the house. Really interesting to get his perspective on the latest developments with the 2 surveillance photos. And then also he drove me around the neighborhood and showed me just how dark it is at night here and also how important the moon is here. Locals know this, but depending on the moon and the cloud cover can have a huge impact on how bright it is in the neighborhood, which could be important when it comes to when the suspect was.
It certainly is worth mentioning. That she did put up 500. I think that was $500,000 for the missing and exploited children, is what she did, which is a fantastic organization. God bless her for it. You know, it's
here for the. I'm
not going to play this whole thing because of time. And we'll get into the news of today here shortly.
For the kidnapping. And then also,
everybody settle down.
One of the previous days that we now know that the suspect was here. So I'm going to get into the latest developments on all of this in this episode of Brian Enton Investigates. Hey guys, so I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house. I kind of found this little spot that I sit at sometimes, kind of up on the hill, away from all the media, and it's kind of loud down there. It's actually kind of peaceful right here. The neighbors have been super nice to let us sort of, in a sense, camp out in some of these areas. While we continue to cover the case. I mean, I can't believe it's day 24 now, which is just insane. But as I mentioned, I have a lot to get to in this episode. Let me start with the new reward. I had heard yesterday that Savannah Guthrie was going to be releasing a video this morning. And today is, what is today? Today is Tuesday, by the way, for people who are following along, and kind of get into some of the other new reporting I have today about the DNA.
Hi there. I'm coming on to say it is day 24 since our mom was taken in the dark of night from her bed.
That to me is an interesting statement. And I would assume that most people at that time would be in bed. But I'm wondering if it was told to her by law enforcement, or if that she's assuming that that's what happened, or I mean, it's very specific, but at the same time, I think that you would think that she would be in her bed.
And every hour and minute and second and every long night has been agony since then, of worrying about her and fearing for her, and aching for her, and most of all, just missing her, just missing her. We know that millions of you have been praying. So many people have been praying, of every faith and no faith at all, praying for her return. And we feel those prayers. Please keep praying without ceasing. We still believe. We still believe in a miracle. We still believe that she can come home. Hope against hope. As my sister says, we are blowing on the embers of hope. We also know that she may be lost. She may already be gone. She may have already gone home to the Lord that she loves and is dancing in heaven with her mom and her dad and with her beloved brother Pierce and with our daddy. And if this is what is to be, then we will accept it. But we need to know where she is. We need her to come home. For that reason, we are offering a family reward of up to $1 million for any information that leads us to her recovery. All of the information about this reward and the details is in the caption below. You can call the 1-800-TIP line. You can be anonymous if you want. Someone out there knows something that can bring her home. Somebody knows. And we are begging you to please come forward now. We also know that we are not alone in our loss. We know there are millions of families that have suffered with this kind of uncertainty. And for that reason today,
Jason says, I don't even know if I want to go into this, but I really don't want to point out the obvious here, Jason, but here's the difference. You are you, and she is she. And she could be putting on a brave face, or trying to put on a brave face to get this message out so she can speak clearly. If you're insinuating that somebody that just put up $1 million has something to do with what's going on, I mean, that's a wild assumption.
we also are donating $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for their work.
He's been crying. I mean, that's just a dumb take.
And helping families who are coping with loss and actively looking for those who are lost. We are hoping that the attention that has been given to our mom and our family will extend to all the families like ours.
And I will tell you this, it's amazing the amount of what emotional grief and anxiety can do to you physically. If people say, anxiety is all mental and physical, or mental, not physical. Well, it may be mental, but it takes a toll on you physically. It wears you down. It beats you down. It causes your just your aura, everything inside you, your soul, your biorhythms, your whatever, everything. It affects every aspect of your life.
Who are in need and need prayers and need support. So please, if you hear this message, if you've been waiting and you haven't been sure, let this be your sign to please come forward, tell what you know, and help us bring our beloved mom home.
You end up losing weight. You end up, when you don't sleep, you get sick. And it's just a nasty bad day in and day out.
So that we can either celebrate a glorious, miraculous homecoming or celebrate the beautiful, brave, and courageous and noble life that she has lived. Please be the light in the dark. Thank you.
So again, just heartbreaking to hear from Savannah in that video, and my heart goes out to her. Also new at the house today, there was a crew that came in, put no trespassing signs up, which was a new development. I'm not surprised to see this happening.
I'm not surprised to see this happening either. And remember where there were people in the chat saying the other day that that they had hired the ladies with the sticks. You remember that?
People have been delivering flowers to the house, and you guys have seen there's been food deliveries, and I think they just wanted to put the signs up to kind of make clear that people are not allowed to walk on the property. There's also still been a Pima County Sheriff's deputy who has been here around the clock. I remember in the beginning, that wasn't the case when they cleared the crime scene, which has still led to a lot of questions about whether that was appropriate. But for the last couple of weeks, there's been a Pima County deputy here around the clock, keeping an eye on the house. And now they also added these no trespassing signs in front of the house. The DNA developments here are not good news. And this is reporting that I have confirmed here on the ground, but also my colleague Libby Dean in DC has some really good sources and has also double sourced this. So what we're reporting is that the DNA found inside Nancy Guthrie's home was only a partial sample and was not viable for CODIS. And so what that means is, remember the sheriff said over the weekend that they were having DNA challenges, and the sheriff opted to send the DNA to the private.
There were people that did say that. I'm not saying you said it, Janet. Don't get it twisted here.
Lab that he has used in Florida instead of to the FBI's lab at Quantico. The fact that this is not viable means it's just not a strong DNA sample. We know, according to the sheriff at least, that it is not DNA connected to Nancy Guthrie or to anyone within her inner circle. But getting it in the CODIS database was important because CODIS is huge. It's a federal database, but there are, a ton of known criminals in this database. But they cannot even get it into the database because the DNA sample is not viable. So that is not good news. Remember, there was the DNA that they tested from the glove that was found 2 miles away. That DNA they were able to get into the database, and it just didn't have a match in the database. But I was much more interested from the beginning about the DNA from inside the house. And it turns out that at this point, it's not viable and they cannot get it into the CODIS database. And there are apparently also concerns that they will even be able to test it for genetic genealogy.
So it sounds like, and I'm sure that we'll get updated a little bit more tonight, but it sounds like there is that the DNA inside the house is going to be a no-go. That they're going to have to use some extreme measures here. And I saw that the lady that does the vacuum DNA, which I've seen quite a bit of, was on Nancy Grace, and we'll we can get into that a little bit because it's very interesting. It's like, I don't know, man.
Now, hopefully these things will improve. Maybe they can try a different lab or someone else with a different level of expertise. But at this point, again, our sources are confirming that the DNA found in the house was not viable for CODIS, and the sheriff over the week.
And also, if you're the praying type, and I'll either do a video or a live, and we will discuss the Sebastian Rogers case, because of the 2-year anniversary is here. 2 years. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I remember, like I said, I was one of the first people to start covering that case, and yeah, say a prayer for Sebastian if you're the praying type, or at least good thoughts.
Again, mentioned that they have been having challenges with that DNA. So I've been away from home for a while for work, and one of the things I miss so much are my Factor meals. They make so good. I think it was just awful. Data is not public. The other new piece of reporting that I've had over the last day is we have confirmed through sources that the photos that were taken from the surveillance camera in the front of Nancy Guthrie's house, you guys remember these two photos? There was the photo with the suspect with the backpack on, and then there was the photo of him without the backpack on. And it turns out, according to my sources, these photos are from different days. One of them is from when Nancy Guthrie was kidnapped early in the morning of February 1st. The other is from a previous day, and I have not been able to confirm what day that is. But this is significant, and I told you guys this yesterday, because this means that the person or persons were stalking Nancy Guthrie's house, were casing the house.
No, that's just his sponsor.
This wasn't just someone who showed up early in the morning on February 1st and decided to do this because they were here a previous day, which is chilling. And it's scary. It sort of makes this whole thing a bit more frightening, I think. But it's what a lot of people suspected, that this wasn't just some random act, that this was targeted. And it appears that this is evidence of that, because we know that the person was here days before, or at least a day before Nancy Guthrie was kidnapped. I want to bring back the January 11th date to you again, because so many of the neighbors told me that when the FBI were canvassing this area, they were specifically abducted.
Mm-hmm.
And
is this our guy?
What do you think about this reporting?
Where's his duck flap?
Now that we have that, you know, the one photo is from the morning when Nancy was abducted.
Mm-hmm. Have they proven that it's from different days? I don't know if there's proof. It's just that they're relying on their sources. I believe them. I mean, it looks like, it just seems like the lighting is on different days. I mean, it's either one of two things. It's either different days or different people. And I would just, what are the odds that there are different people casing the same house? I mean, I guess it's possible.
And then the other photo is from, we don't know what day, but from a day before.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Well, the first thing I thought when I saw the photos and heard that they might be from different days is that whoever did this is far more sophisticated than maybe I initially gave them credit for. This wasn't a chance encounter. It was planned out. And from what
I believe it's 2 different days. It looks like 2 different days. Doesn't look like 2 different people to me.
Say from, if it is 2 different days, planned out very well. Coming on different nights, seeing, what light is, what traffic in the neighborhood is, things like that. That tells me it's very thought out, very well planned. So that would tell me there was probably a reason behind it as well.
Yeah, when I first saw the photos, I was wondering because he didn't have the backpack on in one. And you can't tell for sure that they're the same jacket. But I was wondering mainly about the backpack. Like, why wouldn't he have the backpack on in both photos? So this does kind of explain that.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. It could have been as simple as, he walked up once without the backpack to see if anyone was there, walked back to a car or whatever, picked it on and got his gear and decided to go in. But when I was looking at I zoomed in at the jackets and they do appear different. Now, it's tough to tell under IR lighting, but the one without the backpack and without the gun visible looks.
This is the SWAT guy, right? Quit playing games with my heart.
More like a camouflage type jacket to me. You could see different colored splotches and things like that, which the other jacket clearly looked like it was a solid color.
So do you think it could be two different people?
It absolutely could be. I looked at the body type; they're very similar. It probably, if I were doing it, it'd probably be the same person. You know, the less people that know, you know, you're not going to be sending a lot of people to. If you're trying to do a scout of a location, you want the same person doing it, just to keep all the information consistent. It's horrible to say from a bad guy point of view, but that's the right thing to do. The same person does it every time, so they know the ins and outs. They know the layout of the walkway up, the doors.
Let's just, this is just an interview. So let's go to today's.
Hey guys, thanks so
Because there's no time like the present. After that, we can listen a little bit and discuss where the VAC DNA, because that's interesting stuff.
much for checking out my show. I really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. Appreciate all the support. It is day 25, which I can't believe, in the search for Nancy Guthrie. A lot of updates in today's episode. First of all, there was a lot of activity outside of Nancy's house today and inside the house. There were homicide detectives, I've confirmed, FBI, and perhaps family, which is something I'm still trying to sort out, that showed up to Nancy's house today. We have drone videos, so I'm going to walk you through everything that happened, but it's the most activity I've seen at the house in quite a while. What that might mean in terms of the investigation, I'm going to get into that. It's like super sunny today, by the way. It's probably one of the hotter days since I've been here. Also, the Cajun Navy is here. I interviewed their incident commander, who is kind of frustrated because he says they want to help search, but they don't want to do it without the permission of the sheriff. And he says the sheriff's office just flat out is pretty much ignoring him, is what he told me. So you'll hear from him in this episode. And then finally, I have
I guess I don't understand that. I mean, unless they have some leads that they're tracking down that they really believe that there's no searching going on. There's no public searching. I can't really remember too many cases where there wasn't like I don't know. I guess they just don't think she's out there.
former FBI hostage negotiator who I'm talking to about this whole theory that this is a Savannah stalker. This is someone who was obsessed with Savannah Guthrie, who has now taken her mom, and why he believes that could be the case, and things that he has seen which makes him think that's the case. Really a fascinating conversation, kind of disturbing, but really, really interesting to hear his theory on the whole thing. So I'm going to get into all of it in this episode of Brian Enton Investigates. Hey guys, all right, so it's day 25. I'm outside Nancy Guthrie's house. I'm going to go through the updates with you from today. There's a lot of action outside the house, and I have a lot of video that I want to get you to kind of explain to you how it happened in real time. Kind of came out of nowhere, where first there was this white pickup truck that showed up, which I think is the locksmith that we saw last time. But then there were several darkly tinted SUVs that showed up, and you can see this group of what I believe is law enforcement.
Maybe it's just his stealth clothing that he's doing his dirty business in.
Some people thought maybe they were prosecutors because they're dressed, you know, they're very dressed fancy. Right in front of Nancy's house. They were looking at the doorway, the area where we saw the blood. They were really focused on the front of the house. Then they walked around to the side of the house, a group of them. We had our drone up. They were in the back of the house and on the side of the house. And then there was this other black SUV that showed up. This was what really interested me. Went into Nancy's garage. They opened the garage, the SUV went in, and then they closed the garage. And you could see some of the people who were here, who I know at least one of them was a Pima County homicide detective, I'm told. They were outside the garage. Then they went inside. They closed the garage, and we weren't able to see who got out of that SUV. That was especially interesting to me just because I haven't seen that happen before. Like, is there someone that they didn't want us to see going into the house? My first thought was maybe a family member that just didn't want to be on camera with all the media outside. We just don't know. But they went in. The group was in the back of the house, as I was saying, near the guest house. You can see them out back. They were walking around the back. They were walking around Nancy's patio, around the backyard. And then we...
Yeah, let me see it. Nanos gave a reason. He said they could stumble upon a crime scene and disturb the scene. I just don't. I mean, yeah, you want to stumble upon the scene. You want to stumble upon the crime scene. I mean, geez, it's more than what they got now.
Saw the black SUV came out of the garage. They opened the garage. The SUV left. And then the series of SUVs all kind of like sped away pretty quickly, sort of like a convoy of them. But again, I don't know who was in the black SUV that went into the garage. We don't know why they were not wanting us to see who was in that SUV. And when they sped by, I tried to look in the windows, but they were just so tinted that I couldn't see inside. So it was interesting. It was clearly investigators who were out here. The reason that they came out today, we don't know. It's interesting timing one day after the $1 million reward that Savannah put up. And I haven't seen that many investigators out here at once in quite some time. So it certainly caught my eye. Something else interesting is the United Cajun Navy is here. Their incident commander was out here talking with us today. His name is Josh Gill. And he's from, they're an organization out of Louisiana, I believe. And he says that he came here because he has a group of volunteers that all want to help search, but they want to do it with law enforcement cooperation. They don't want to just do it without getting the blessing from law enforcement and some direction, too, of an area that they would want them to search. But he says the sheriff has been ignoring them, essentially, and he's been trying to get in touch with the sheriff. So again, his name is Josh Gill. I wanted you to hear my conversation with him. What is happening with the sheriff? I mean, I guess you're asking for permission to search?
Absolutely. So the way our organization works is we come in falling under the command and control of the local law enforcement. And the last thing we want to do is self-deploy or go in without any permission and then potentially contaminate a crime scene or an investigation.
And what has the response been from the sheriff?
None.
Like any communication?
Very little. So the only communication I've had as of yet was I called the PIO yesterday and said, hey, we've got opened up a tip line, and that tip line, we're receiving tips. If you would like to get them directly, we can link you up with that tip line. And they said, just email them to them. I did have a conversation at the same time on who we are and what we have to offer. And there was really no interest.
Is that unusual in your experience?
It is.
What normally happens?
Usually the law enforcement will be able to have a conversation with them further on what we can do and provide them with an operational plan. And I understand these guys are extremely busy. It's a high profile case. I did send them an email today offering our assistance and lining out an operational plan, how we can help.
And what would you like to do if they said yes?
Fall under their command and control and fill in the gaps. Basically, we're a force multiplier. We're additional boots on the ground. We do have thermal drones. We've got subject matter experts when it comes to search and rescue. We've also got K9 teams that are well qualified and have a lot of experience as well.
So if they gave you a big area to search that they haven't been able to get to, you could do it?
Absolutely.
It's kind of so interesting they just are ignoring you. You think they would at least have some dialogue like, hey, now's not the right time, or let's talk in a week, or you know what I mean?
Sure. Totally agree with you. And they are extremely busy. I know that they're getting a lot of tips, they're receiving a lot of information, and they've got to filter through that. We just want to sit down 5-10 minutes. That's it. Talk about our organization, what we have to offer, how we would integrate into their operation, and provide some professional services.
And so how long will you wait?
I'll wait as long as it takes.
So you're just waiting now?
Absolutely. We are gathering some tips as well, and coordinating with some other volunteer groups that are here, and trying to get a good operational plan together. Again, I have sent.
Yeah, this is like deja vu all over again with the Cajun Navy. I'm so confused about the Cajun Navy, the United Cajun Navy, the Cajun Navy. I don't know. I have no idea who's who anymore. I have no idea.
Something to the sheriff's office that delineates and lines out a complete plan.
And if they give the go ahead, how many people could you have here?
I mean, even for me, that's a gnarly beard. It's like you could have baby birds in there. You could be nesting them.
Oh, that's a tough question to answer. A lot. I could have enough to start scouring the ground, utilizing grid searches, grid patterns, and have them thoroughly done.
So we'll see what happens in terms of the Cajun Navy, and if they end up making contact with the sheriff, I'll kind of stay on top of that. Also, I was at a Mexican restaurant last night in Tucson, which is one of the places that Savannah Guthrie went with her mom in that Today Show segment. Remember when Savannah came home and they did a segment? This was several months ago with her mom. They went to several different places in Tucson, including this Mexican restaurant downtown. And I was talking to them last night, the people who work there, and they were saying that law enforcement has been in touch with them since Nancy went missing, trying to see if there was anything unusual when they were there shooting the segment. Any people who were watching Savannah closely, anyone that they got creepy vibes from, which I thought was interesting because it goes back to this theory of, could this be like a Savannah stalker who is behind this? Someone obsessed with Savannah.
Well, that's the thing. I don't really know. I know that they were sort of a part of the search for Sebastian, but I don't know, man. Like then people, there's a difference between the Cajun Navy and the United Cajun Navy. I don't know who that guy is. I have no idea. I'm not that familiar with him, only from Sebastian's case. I know that, I don't know if this is the one that beefs with JLR or not. I have no idea. I know that one of them beefs with it. So Kylie Rodney as well. Yeah, I have no idea.
Trying to get to her and using her mom to do that, which I think is something that we have to consider based on what I've heard. And I think it's something that the FBI is considering they're going back to some of these places that she went with her mom and asking if there was anyone showing any like creepy behavior. Also, you would imagine behind the scenes, they're probably going through Savannah's emails. And when you're someone of her caliber and fame, and you're on TV every morning on the Today Show, you would imagine she has had stalkers and people who have sent her inappropriate emails and tried to reach out to her and contact her and that kind of thing. So I would imagine that's part of the investigation now. I spoke with Phil Andrew, who is a former FBI agent and was actually a hostage negotiator, and to see what he thinks about this theory, which was really interesting. And he also zeroed in on some of Savannah's videos that she's made, which is something that I've talked to you guys about too, that she seems to try to sound almost sympathetic to the person who took her mother, which may go, and remember, it's the FBI helping her make these videos, which may go back to this theory that that they believe it could be someone who is like a crazy fan of Savannah, like a stalker fan. So I want you to hear my conversation with Phil. I'm joined now by Phil Andrew, retired FBI special agent.
I guess I keep saying this. I guess anything's possible, but I'm very, I just don't think she's famous. Yeah, but stalker.
Negotiator, it's good to see you again, Phil. I want to first ask you about the reward, since this just happened. Savannah Guthrie posting the $1 million reward. Apparently she wanted to do it earlier, but was told to wait. Do rewards typically, and you've worked so many cases, not just like this, because this one's so unique, but similar. Do rewards typically make a difference? I mean, do you think it will in this case?
They do. They do. One, they help keep this in the media cycle. So it's in people's consciousness. And there's hope that someone still sees that video and the uniqueness of the gait, the movement, the clothing, the eyebrows, that could break someone saying, hey, I think I know who this is. Also, somebody that might be close, a compatriot, or
like, well, the Cajun Navy, they're a 501c. It's just a nonprofit organization. They're volunteers. But there seems to be some disputes about not the legitimacy, but maybe the legitimacy. I don't know. It sounds like they've had beef with many people before.
Sitting on this information, it might shake them loose, because sometimes people's motivation changes over time, and we do know that money can be a motivator. But it's really important to keep this in front of people because it doesn't look like there are strong leads.
When I watched her latest video, and really with all of them, there's a sense that she's trying to like communicate directly with the person who's responsible in like a very gentle way, almost like an understanding way. And the way I've thought about it is almost like if it could be someone who was obsessed with her, who she's trying to kind of level with. What do you think about that? Because we know that they've gone likely. I mean, what I'm hearing is the FBI has, gone.
I think that I think that they're. Hold on. So it says that there are multiple separate and unaffiliated organizations that use the term Cajun Navy. Originally a generic term for Louisiana boaters assisting in floods, it has become a brand of several distinct registered nonprofit groups, such as the United Cajun Navy 2006, and Cajun Navy Relief. Multiple entities. There is no single official Cajun Navy. The Louisiana Secretary of State has listed over a dozen different organizations with the Cajun Navy in their name. Hope that clears it up for you, but it doesn't clear anything up for me.
Through her emails and, trying to see, someone with her sort of notoriety and fame has, a lot of people out there that are probably a little crazy, that reach out to her. I mean, what do you think about that theory that could be what's going on here, that could be the person responsible?
I think your instincts are right. And, having sat with families at these really, really painful, difficult moments, and sometimes over, weeks and months, the reality is she is speaking directly to the abductor, and you can see it. And she is leveraging that kind of empathetic and personal approach. And it's a very important part of this. And it's a very difficult part of it. Now, you can't be, you just can't be sensitive enough to how difficult this is for her and her family to speaking to the world, to really reach potentially one person. And this one person has a lot of control in this situation. And I think that you're onto something too, that a theory could be that this is somebody who has a deep emotional connection, unilateral, of course, that she would not have necessarily met this person, or they were in a group and they just would not be noticeable to her or her mother.
So I've been away from home for a while for work, and one of the things I miss so much are my Factor meals. They make it so much easier to eat better, and Factor is a sponsor of today's video. Factor doesn't just ask you to meal prep because they get your personal data off the market.
And they've created some sort of, fixation, and that's what this could be about. Almost like we saw with Hinckley and the attack on Ronald Reagan, to get the attention of Jodie Foster.
Would this person want to hurt her mom?
Well, that part is unclear, and I think it's important. And this is what I would say. Even if I was working this case and sitting with the family, and I'd say it now, that we don't have any evidence that
there's more than one United Cajun Navy. Shit.
And, the attack on Ronald Reagan, to get the attention of Jodie Foster.
Would this person want to hurt her mom?
Well, that part is unclear. And I think it's important. And this is what I would say, even if I was working this case and sitting with the family, and I'd say it now, that we don't have any evidence that she's deceased. And I think it's important not to come to any conclusions. Time can make us more anxious. Time without more significant leads becomes very frustrating and requires more patience. But the reality is, we've seen cases, and they're rare, but we've seen cases resolve, and we just don't know enough. There are just too many anomalies with this case
I know of.
to be able to say with any certainty what's happened. So it's really important to be following through with the greatest level of fidelity with every technique to try to resolve this safely.
You know, I don't know if you've seen this segment from several months ago, but Savannah came back to Tucson and kind of like a trip back to her hometown. And she was with her mom for much of the segment, and they went to different spots in town. And one of them was this famous Mexican place that I actually went to last night. And the waiter was telling me that, you know, he remembers
Oh, Brian, you're not supposed to be going. You're supposed to eat those friggin' male meals.
when they came in, it was a big to-do, and that since then, law enforcement have reached out to the restaurant.
And Sammy says a thank you. Appreciate that. Hi, Josh. Don't you think if it was somebody obsessed with Savannah, they'd be wanting to contact her now more than ever? Yes, I do. I don't think it's a stalker. I don't know many people that do think it's a stalker. It's just kind of a theory, but I don't know. We're kind of running out of theories here, you know?
Trying to see, you know, was there anyone strange that showed up or anything weird that happened when they were filming their segment there, which leads me to believe like they're obviously looking into this stalker theory. If it is a stalker or someone obsessed with Savannah, would there be some evidence that they could find? Like, would it likely be someone who had tried to reach out to her before?
Potentially, and that's why they're taking these steps. So to sort of recreate the last, even potentially few years, from fan letters, from email, from folks that have maybe signed up or shown up in places that could have been meet and greets for her, as well as something like this where a restaurant is used and very, very close to locals, and there isn't any kind of discrimination of who could be close. So recreating those and understanding who could have been there,
I still don't. I don't think that there's any word on if the vehicle was ever released back to them.
Pictures, even personal pictures. Somebody that was just there, and as she walked by, kind of,
I don't know, zero. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she's famous, but I mean, it's possible. It's possible, but to go that far to kidnap her mother
by the rope where she's going in with her mother, that might have caught people in the background. And, when you have more time, when there isn't the urgency around chasing leads, you really can be much more methodical and go back and do a deep scrape of these kind of engagements where there might be a video, a recollection, somebody that, well, I didn't think that was relevant until they were asked.
Yeah, just something that stood out. That was a little strange or something like that.
Exactly.
What do I keep thinking about this. It's like 40 or 41 minutes that we think the suspect or suspects were in the house, from the time that the camera was disengaged to when her pacemaker disconnected. I just keep wondering, like, what may have been happening for that amount of time.
Yes. Well, look, I've got some unique and personal insight into that, having been an actual hostage myself. And
I don't know if they are. I don't want to say that they are, but there's been nothing. It was reported that it was taken, but it hasn't been reported if it was given back. And I know people have been trying to figure that out, and nothing.
School shooting in America, and the perpetrator took hostages. Happened to be my childhood home, and it was
Really?
over 90 minutes of my mother, father, and I being held at gunpoint, and no one knew what was going on. And the reality was,
Oh shit! Really? So it's been reported by Brian Whitney that they still have the car. Wow. Ooh, wow. mean, I think that's a big deal. I don't know.
We were in dialogue.
I think that's a big deal. I think that's a big deal because Carlos got his car back.
Negotiating. I was able to negotiate, my folks' release. I was later shot in an attempt to disarm her, but until I literally recovered and was able to share my story, no one knew what happened for those.
We'd been asking about that when McDonough came on the show, him and John Lamb. That, I mean, that was something that we had been wondering about. Well, they kind of did. I mean, they seized everything, didn't they?
Those 90 minutes, except for, my mother, father, and I, and then for the minutes that they were gone. So this could be, and I might, surmise, it could have been dialogue. It could have been trying to convince her of something, or dialogue about moving with her. It could have been ordering her around. The reality is we don't know, but without more insight into what exactly happened inside the house, was furniture overturned, were things disturbed.
I knew that.
The assumption is that they probably made entry and that there was some sort of engagement. And then we see the blood. So that's not clear, exactly what caused that injury, but it could have been, an argument or dialogue that didn't result in full compliance. And, then this abductor.
That car was impounded at least 2.5 weeks ago, at least. I mean, are they waiting on more testing? I mean, I don't know, man. That's crazy.
Used force. But again, this is all surmising, but it's sometimes the things that are most simple. Like this doesn't have to be. And this individual seemed like they came with a plan, but not like a perfect plan, not a rehearsed plan, not somebody that was deeply experienced in this, and probably not prepared, for the actual physical engagement that an abduction sometimes requires.
I mean, just trying to get in the mind of someone like this. If the person is somewhat obsessed with Savannah,
yes,
would that make them not want to hurt her mom, or is it actually the opposite?
It's hard to surmise, but if there is, sort of an errato.
So think about this. If the excuse me, the only reason that it would be held for this long would be that they're waiting on, I don't know, forensic testing, fiber testing, holding it for evidence. And it's possible that, with prosecutors visiting the house today, which we'll hear about here in a few minutes, that they certainly could have a lot more than we know, than we think, which would be a good thing. But them holding onto that car for this long is quite a development.
Like a unilateral, kind of affection or emotional connection, that there'll be a lot of assumptions by the abductor that Savannah's mother would be trying to catch up with, right? And all these kind of facts and beliefs and
the fact that they're quote unquote cleared,
thoughts and experiences that this person is unilaterally experiencing and maybe trying to convince her of, maybe trying to remind her of. And so we don't know, but with how it was done does suggest to me that there was sort of this emotional connection before arriving. It doesn't look like a burglary, right? It doesn't look like this was random, that this person knew her and perhaps Savannah in advance of this.
Yeah, and now we know that, you know, this person was there before because one of the surveillance photos is from a previous day, and we don't
Yeah, or somebody. Yeah, I heard this that there's somebody from the district attorney's office, possibly.
have any information that it was a burglary or that anything was even taken. You know, that there's been that hasn't come out.
I don't think that's completely out of line. I think with how some of these investigations go, but
what you were saying though, can you explain a little more when you said that he would be trying to convince the mother of things? Like what did you mean by that?
Well, for instance, they come in and like, I am so and so. Like, I want this. My reason for being here is this, and her being in disbelief. Like, well, get out. You know, I don't know you. You're a stranger. And he was like, you know, and whatever that might be for him to be sharing, convincing, or forcing acknowledgement of something that only he knew and she would not have been aware of before. And, you know, it's hard to make any assumptions about that dialogue, but what we can kind of surmise is that there was probably a very different vantage point of facts, right? And he's living in some different reality about what has taken place and probably trying to convince, berate, or explain his actions.
Sammy, thank you for your $5 donation. Friend's car impounded for weed, released only after case closed. Police don't typically hold cars this long unless they're in evidence. I mean, that's sort of how I feel about it too. Of course it is. I mean, and it is speculation. That's what it is.
In some way.
But the fact that they still have her car, I mean, that's not speculation.
To further her compliance. And because that 41 minutes, you know, it could be that, or he could have come in immediately and done something to force her, maybe affect her consciousness. And the 40 minutes is then preparing, you know, to make some kind of movement, because it's not clear how she was transported from there. And, you know, that would be hard to believe that was all done on foot, that there wasn't some sort of vehicle nearby. But the reality is it's hard to move someone unconscious, you know, even in perfect scenarios, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that she's immobile, or not immobile, but, you know, has mobility issues. I wonder, and we don't know this, but I'm just thinking back to this idea that
also, yeah, it could mean that, but it also could mean, you know, the prosecutors want to see it in case this ever does go to trial. They take notes, they take photos, and because it sounds as though they're getting ready to release the house back to the family after, you know, close to a month now, because there's nothing else for them to find, that they've swept the house. And, you know, I don't know. Well, I guess it was reported by, who was it? I can't remember their name, but it was reported that they still have the car.
it could be someone obsessed with Savannah. Like if items were taken that belonged to Savannah or pictures of Savannah, that kind of thing would be interesting to know.
Yes. And, you know, again, this might require additional kind of reviewing of that. But we have to sort of believe that investigators have covered that. But initially,
A lot of the times when they're getting ready to release a crime scene, that the prosecutors will want to take a look before they do that. I've seen it in other cases before. Brianna Whitney of Arizona News. Hold on, I'll bring that up here. Did she post it on X? Okay, so 6 hours ago, Brianna Whitney, I will read this to you, says, multiple people have asked me what the status is on Annie Guthrie's car after it was taken for processing in the case. I asked Pima County Sheriff's Department today and just received this response. Quote, all we can say at this time, the vehicle is still part of the investigation. There you go.
It seems like there was a little confusion as to the depth and severity of this abduction on the initial police response. That and that potentially disturbing things or not recognizing that.
I mean, that's
maybe something very, very obscure having been taken. But the reality is, it doesn't have to. I mean, literally, it's clear that he has taken, Miss Guthrie, that another artifact might not have been of any interest.
With your history as a hostage negotiator, do you think Savannah will continue to have this sort of like sympathetic tone? Is there a point where does it ever work to be more, not aggressive, but, like return my mom right now kind of thing?
I don't think so.
It's not said, it's evidence. I didn't say they said it was evidence.
In my experience, it really is trying to create the safest opportunity.
Well, what would you call something that's been collected for an investigation? What would you call that? Pug hair is glitter. What would you describe something being collected as and part of an ongoing investigation?
For someone to really recognize the humanity and that impact, and really humanitizing herself, personalizing herself. But the reality is, as I've said, it's just so difficult, so painful to.
It's a great question.
To do this, and it usually relies on a lot of support. It's really just very hard, even for somebody that has been, involved in, television and speaking to cameras. You cannot fully appreciate how difficult this is for her, but necessary and potentially what makes the difference.
Yeah.
Hemi and Axel. I think that's how you say it. I appreciate that. Thank you, Josh, for coming on day after day and having real intellectual conversation. I'm on Central Standard Time Zone, and I stay up well past bedtime to be a part of the community you have created. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And I appreciate everybody in the chat.
Gosh, that's a lot of,
being respectful to each other and having these conversations.
Pressure for her. I mean, I can't even imagine what it must be like for her knowing this could have something to do with her career and her fame. That's got to be hard.
That's true.
Yes. I mean, and we see this so often with victims and survivors, them looking internally. And the reality is that, that this is something that happened to Savannah and her mother. And their family. This is not something that they've caused, but the way forward is to deeply humanize themselves and continue to communicate in ways that are very empathetic and try to shake loose.
Look, they said that the car, I'll just say this again. All we can say at this time, the vehicle is still part of the investigation. I mean, take that however you want. Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Some kind of communication. And of course, as in any hostage negotiation, we're really looking for some kind of engagement and then, of course, proof of life.
Yeah, which there hasn't been any proof of life, which is one thing I've wondered about. I mean, with these letters that went to TMZ that were never really authenticated, wouldn't there typically be a proof of life?
Yes, well, my sense is, and I think they've run those down as all being hoax.
Yeah.
That's kind of a reality of today. Not just that we have elderly being targeted, but that we've got a population that thinks this is an opportunity to prank and have their own kind of moment, and it's very unfortunate. And if anybody with any consciousness can deeply appreciate how hard this is, and that wouldn't want any family to go through this, and for it to be prolonged like this, any kind of hostage situation, it really does amplify the pain and the trauma for loved ones.
Some people have questioned why Savannah hasn't been out and about more, helping search, outside the house. I mean, with other stories, we've seen families come out and be very sort of like out front. Do you think she could be in danger? I mean, I was just thinking if I were in her shoes.
JLR said he heard a drill noise today while people were inside. Any idea? I mean, that could be a plethora of different reasons. Sometimes they take doorknobs, pieces of carpet. They sometimes they just take certain things that they feel that they want to test or something. So it's possible.
I would probably, when you've got kids and you don't know who took your mom, and it could be a crazy obsessed person. I mean, if you were advising her, is that something you think she should be concerned about?
I think I don't know, but potentially, but I think that it's very consistent to limit her exposure and be very clear on her message. Because if you've got one message and you're talking to the world and you're hoping to reach one person, you don't want to confuse that. You don't want any other message being sent. And that's really hard, as much as she probably would like to. And that's her impulse.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm sure she's being guided to allow that to be done by professionals and others. That they've got people in the field that are doing that, and that the best and most important thing she can be doing is taking care of herself, her family, and being very clear and consistent in her own message.
Is there anything else with her videos that has stood out to you? Considering you've worked these kinds of situations, that you were like, oh, that's definitely something that they're trying to, portray.
Well, I mean, this is just my personal vantage point as a general consumer. I've seen Savannah primarily, on set, and in the sort of social places where you would expect to see somebody with a celebrity. And it is markedly different that you're seeing,
is pinned at the top. Once again, Brianna Whitney of, let's see, who's she with again? True Crime Arizona Live. It's reporting that 6 hours ago, multiple people have asked me the status of Annie Guthrie's car after it was taken for processing in the case. I asked Pima County Sheriff's Department today and just received this response. All we can say at this time, the vehicle is still part of the investigation, whatever that means.
Very much the raw version of Savannah. This is her very personally. This is who she is. And I think that one is just the reality of.
I'm struggling with this guy. I mean, I gotta be honest. I'm sure he's wonderful guy, but rough.
DNA.
Let's do this because I want to hear about this vac. I'm just I don't know, man. I was just struggling with them. Actually, hold on. We'll get to that in 1 second. He was just like killing me, bro. Killing me, bro. It was killing me, bro. I'm telling you, it was killing me. Jeez.
Yeah, I was out here and it was kind of surprising because it's been quiet for the last week or so in terms of actual activity at Nancy's house. And all of a sudden, several black tinted out windows SUVs showed up. And then a group was out here and it was kind of
like, I mean, I was trying to hang in there. That's the first interview that I've given up on. All right. So I don't want to, don't come for me in the comments.
of surprising because it's been quiet
I did. I gave up on it.
for the last week or so in terms of actual activity at Nancy's house. And all of a sudden, several black tinted out windows SUVs showed up. And then a group of people got out. Some were federal agents, I am told. And we have learned just tonight that others were prosecutors, which is interesting. Prosecutors from Pima County wanted to tour the house. And you could tell they look different than the law enforcement that we've seen. They were, dressed up in suits. And they walked around the front of the house. They walked around the back of the house. That video you're showing there, though, that's interesting. I don't know if we can replay that because that's actually what stood out to me the most. One of the black SUVs, most of them parked in the front. The prosecutors got out. The law enforcement got out. But there was one SUV, Jesse, that actually pulled around the side. That one had very tinted windows. We couldn't see who was inside. They opened the garage, pulled into the garage, and then they closed the garage before, and that's it right there. You're going to see it pull around the side and then into the garage. Then they closed the garage before we could see who got out of it. Stayed for about an hour. Then the garage opened back up and that SUV pulled out and they kind of like zoomed down the street because we were trying to look in the windows. So I don't know. We know that the prosecutors were on the outside. My hunch was, is it perhaps a family member that just doesn't, want to be on camera? Because they seem to, go to great lengths to make sure we weren't able to see in those windows.
Yeah, that was my thought too. By the way, the suits are always a dead giveaway that sometimes it's prosecutors, which it's not uncommon for them to visit a crime scene to see if there's enough evidence to maybe mount charges or see what's out there. By the way, you talk about authorities visiting the house. I heard reporting that there was a final sweep by the FBI. Is that true? And what does that mean?
Yeah, it could be because NBC News is reporting tonight, according to sources. And I'm always interested in what NBC News reports with their sources because, of course, Savannah Guthrie works there, and you'd imagine they're in touch with her, I would imagine. So they're reporting tonight that authorities are about to release the house back to the Guthrie family. So if that's true, which it probably is because NBC is reporting it, it would make sense that maybe this was kind of a final chance for prosecutors to get out here, for the FBI to get out here. They went in the guest house also, just like you said, almost like a final sweep before it's officially turned back over to Nancy's family.
And there's a no parking zone around the house too, right?
Okay, but the car is still part of evidence, and they're going to hold on. They're holding on to the car, but they're going to release the house. Now, I know you can't hold a house forever, but nobody's living in that house. Why can't you just keep it shut? Nobody in, nobody out. Why? I mean, I don't understand that.
That's new, and it's interesting. All the media is kind of talking about it out here, Jesse, because we've been able to stay out here. It's day 25. They actually made a little area for us, and now all of a sudden they've apparently passed this new ordinance where they're going to create a no parking zone in this entire neighborhood to move the media out. Which is again kind of interesting because the neighbors seem to like us for the most part. Most of them are friends with Nancy, and several have told me like, we don't want you guys to leave because we want to find Nancy, and we feel like if you leave, that's not a good sign. Not to mention, some I think just feel safer with more people in the neighborhood right now with everything going on. But they are going to be trying to move us out. We're going to have to figure out what we're going to do tomorrow. I think we can maybe walk in, but they're saying absolutely no parking.
Look, this is pointing to the signs that there's nothing else to find at the house, and now this investigation is going in a different direction, which, by the way, if people don't realize, I need you to update us about the DNA. So there was all this talk about DNA on the glove that was found. It was not a match in CODIS. Then it was sent out for genetic genealogy. We haven't talked so much about an update about the DNA that was found within the home. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, it's not good news. Remember over the weekend, the sheriff said they were having challenges with the DNA. Well, we learned through sources,
they're basically saying that they have passed an ordinance that is basically shutting down the entire road to cars and I guess Media Row, as it was being called.
Sent the DNA to the private lab in Florida, and they're calling it not viable. That's the way our sources described it, which means that they cannot even put it into CODIS. So remember, the glove that they tested, they were able to put it into CODIS and say, okay, no match. This DNA, there's such issues with it that it cannot even be put in to the CODIS database.
Thank you for.
He got me. Son of a gun got me.
DNA, and so are they.
Places where you would expect
DNA, and so are they.
Getting all kinds of shit here. Damn, Nancy.
Breaking news, Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, missing day 25. And this day, eye on the ground, agents on the ground, sheriffs on the ground, tips pouring in. Can we bring Nancy Guthrie home alive? Why not?
Thank you, Jason.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
Our mom was taken in the dark of night from her bed. And every long night has been agony since then.
Whoever knows about Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts that sees that and does not.
Like I said, I got a lot of respect for Nancy Grace. She can be very rude. I get it. But with her coverage in the Casey Anthony case and her coverage of Scott Peterson, she's kind of an OG, and Dub's in the chat for that. Yeah, she can be annoying, but I got respect for her. I really do, and she's very. Was Chris on last night? Maybe we'll watch that. Let's hear what Nancy.
Act must have a heart of stone.
Please be the light in the dark.
Many of us believe that Nancy Guthrie can be brought home alive. Joining us, an all-star panel to make sense of what we know at this hour. First, straight out to Brian Trasher, who is the VP of the United Cajun Navy, who has been on the ground in Arizona. Brian, when you and your team got there, describe what you found.
Well, there was a big scene outside of Nancy Guthrie's house. Obviously, there's a lot of these, true crime, live streamers, YouTubers types, just, out there, making their living. But basically, we wanted to establish contact with local law enforcement. We had already talked to some federal law enforcement just to let them know that we were there, what our capabilities were, should they need help. But our real function out there was to go support some citizen volunteers who do a lot of search and rescue.
This was on yesterday. Okay, well let me do. I want to see what Chris had to say. Day 24. Okay, hold on. All right. I recognize that fluff anywhere. Here we go. See what he had to say here.
He is the star of the Interview Room on YouTube, and he has over 300 homicide investigations under his belt. Okay. Neither you nor I are digital forensic experts, but we've solved a lot of cases through good old-fashioned detective work and common sense. What's your take, McDonough? What is your take? Was this the same night and the guy approaches without a backpack, then he goes back and gets the backpack and approaches with it, the backpack? I mean, does that make sense? Maybe. Or is he skulking on two different dates?
Yeah, so if we start with the premise like you're discussing here, Nancy, about looking at the two photographs as a whole. The first thing that strikes me is in the video, when he's walking up to the property, you can clearly see there's a backlit illumination of some sort. And so,
Control room, please play the video as McDonough is speaking. Okay, go ahead, Chris. Thank you.
That's right. And so you can clearly see that there's some type of light source behind him. And that night, as he's approaching the porch, you can see a shadow on the ground. So I looked that up, and it was right there. You can see the shadow. That means it was a full moon that evening. Okay. And I looked it up, and in fact, it was. And so the second now, if we look at the second photograph of the gentleman standing, at the archway there, we don't see that behind him backlit like that. We don't see a shadow being cast onto the sidewalk as he's standing there right there. And you see it's also much darker behind him. So that would lead me towards, from an investigative analysis aspect of this is possible. It could be two separate nights. Now, like Scott has said, we don't know that for sure. However, from an investigative analysis aspect, investigators are looking at this and going, okay, why is it so dark behind him here? And then that other video, why is it not so dark at that point? Because it appears it could have been two separate nights. The most disturbing piece,
hold on. Let me throw a possibility into your scenario.
Absolutely.
We know that a floodlight was disabled. When he approaches, and it's very well lit in the background, as you were pointing out, Chris, if the floodlight was taken out, let's just say he goes, okay, I'm going to get rid of the floodlight. Could that possibly explain the lack of light in the other photo as opposed to the waxing waning moon? I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility.
It's always a possibility, Nancy, but you see the infrared is responding to the light in this particular video here. And you see he's even turning on his light. So he's having a hard time, seeing exactly, what's in front of him at this moment. So, but I think if these are two separate times, hypothetically, at this point, the most disturbing part of this, if they are separated, is he came the second time armed and prepared to use deadly force. That is an uptick in his behavioral pattern.
We are carefully reviewing the evidence over and over and over. I want to follow up. Dave Mack, we have heard from Nanos and others, possibly Patel. What are they saying about the theory that the porch guy was there on a previous occasion skulking?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, they're saying that everything is speculation, Nancy, that with no timestamp, with no proof of anything, everything is purely speculation. So we're left with that. So no conclusion.
Dude, she dunks on Chris Mack or whatever
being drawn from investigators at this time.
Not Chris Mack, Dave Mack, excuse me.
But you can clearly see, as Chris McDonough just pointed out, there's a lot to go through on these videos and on the clip.
just to cover expenses. It's net/. A 911 call was made about a woman screaming from a car.
He does. You're
Listen.
right about that.
10-4, it's going to be at Oracle and River. The caller is advising they saw a female out of a vehicle window screaming. Then it went northbound on Oracle. The vehicle was a dark gray or blue Chevy Malibu, no plate. Advised that the female was hanging out of the window wearing all black, and the door was also open.
Okay, cover me up right there. Okay, because I was looking off to the side, please. Okay, I'm gonna listen to it one more time.
Wait, what? So did she want them to edit it and they didn't edit it?
Okay.
And the door was also open.
Okay, cover me up right there. Okay, because I was looking off to the side, please.
And then they don't cover her up.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to it one more time. Guys, I don't want to miss a single word. Let's hear that one more time.
10-4, it's going to be at Oracle and River. The caller is advising they saw a female out of a vehicle window screaming. Then it went northbound on Oracle. The vehicle was a dark gray or blue Chevy Malibu, no plate. Advised that the female was hanging out of the window wearing all black, and the door was also open.
Straight out to Crime Stories investigative reporter Dave Mack. I found this on Twitter, X, from our viewers sending in ideas, theories, photos. What do you know about this, Dave Mack?
Yeah.
Well, Nancy, this dispatch recording came from February 1st, but at 2:01, between 2 a.m., 2:01 a.m. and 2:04 a.m. This is at the exact same time we believe the kidnapper or kidnappers were in the home with Nancy Guthrie. Again, 2:01 to 2:04. And by the way, this is about 3.
Okay, so there's a timeline. Okay. Garage door opens, garage door closes, door cam disconnects, pacemaker spikes, software detects person on camera. Wow. Yeah, Nancy she's growing on me again.
Miles from Nancy Guthrie's house. So we've got a car with no plates. Now, who drives a car with no plates, right? You've got a woman screaming out the window. And beyond that, the door actually is open as well, like she's trying to jump out. She's wearing all black. We know this is taking place at the exact same time of the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping, 2:01 to 2:04 a.m., February 1st. That's what we know, 3 miles from her house.
Is it connected? We don't know, but it's close to her home around the time she was taken. We can't really discount anything. Would you agree with that, Chris McDonough?
Yeah, absolutely, Nancy. I mean, you have to check the box and interview that 911 caller and really narrow down what her observations were. And then there are, you could look at the potential cameras in the area. There's some systems there that you could view pretty clearly.
To Scott Eicher, how do you separate what is important and what is not? I mean, you really have to follow every lead down, including this.
Yeah, I've worked in these type command posts before, and it's just a flood of leads. So you have a triage team that's trying to pull out what they think is important, send investigators out to handle right now, and something like this would be one of those in my mind. Hey, you got someone screaming, it's around the same time, whether it's connected or not, we need to go check it out. So you get the tape, interview the caller, see if the officers were able to find that individual. Was it related? Was it not? So thousands of things like this are taking a lot of time for the investigators to work through.
Question back to you, Dave Mack. Wasn't there evidence of law enforcement looking at a vehicle from a nearby Circle K?
There was, Nancy. Law enforcement was investigating. There's a Circle K near Nancy Guthrie's home. Law enforcement went there to try to retrieve video recordings surveillance video from the parking lot of a dark blue or gray colored vehicle. Those were the basic facts, and we do know that that law enforcement was able to obtain surveillance video from another Circle K. This one a little further away from Nancy's, but between her home and the home of Annie, her daughter, where they did retrieve surveillance video focusing on a very specific vehicle.
And I want to circle back one more time to the perp on the front porch. The January 11th date is the day that law enforcement asked neighbors to look at their video, to look at their home surveillance video. And there is a theory that the second perp skulking date was around January 11. And I think that is what is lending to a lot of speculation that the kidnapper had been to her home before. If he had been there before, to you, Chris McDonough, that would open up a wide variety of investigative possibilities. Video of that day, cell phone data of that day, license plates of that day, a lot more evidence if we could establish he had been there before. Agree or disagree?
No, totally agree, Nancy. You're 1,000% correct. And it also helps in the investigation to understand that this guy has concealed himself before the event. That's what we would call pre-event incident behavior, right? And then we have pre-behavior, incident behavior, post-behavior. And this would tell us a lot about his digital footprint that Scott can tell us more, and we could.
Pacemaker spike is it's just like a distinct vertical line on the ECG, and it means that the electrical signal is delivered by the artificial pacemaker to help the heart beat. So I don't know exactly why it would do that, but it did.
Possibly imagine here, but it would give the investigators a really good opportunity to open this thing up. Because the other thing, if you start looking at some of the other Ring camera videos of the burglaries, and I think there's like, a couple of thousand burglaries in the Tucson area around that time frame. Notice most of those guys that are doing this are not wearing masks. Okay. And so that's kind of a really big indicator in this guy's behavior pattern. And that would move us forward to putting him on the porch the night of Nancy's abduction.
I'm just thinking back on that $1 million reward that the Guthries are putting up. For Pete's sake, to you, Iker, you've handled a lot of cases in homicide in Norfolk, Virginia. It's always the girlfriend, the wife, the ex, the grandma, the mother, the next door neighbor.
Yeah, it could have to do with AFib, I guess. But yeah, that's basically what it's doing.
Lady that notices something odd, something unusual, and comes forward. It just with $1 million on the table, don't you think that will make a difference, Iker?
I do think it'll make a difference. Everybody has their price. Everybody has to kind of evaluate how it is going to affect them if they come forward. So you got to take that into account, that $1 million is going to help you, and you can stay anonymous. But you gotta remember that these people are scared. Whether if they're involved or not, or know something, they're going to be scared. And I think Savannah's plea to them was just heartfelt. I think it was just showing them that, hey, it can be okay if we just give Nancy back to us.
American homeowners, the FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud called title theft. Your equity.
By the way, this is actually interesting too, that this kind of stuff goes on. Also, the David case with the young lady, I believe Celeste. There's some big developments in that case as well. If you're also interested, the mother who is accused of poisoning her husband, who's on trial and then writing a book to help comfort her children about it. That trial is interesting as well.
The target. With just a forged signature, your ownership can be transferred out. If you victim of fraud, they will spend and put a lot, as we had deduced here on Crime Stories when we first heard about it. It was just, for me, it was just too close to a homeless embankment. So obviously the law enforcement has figured out who it belongs to and ruled that out. Now to the DNA, joining us, a real expert in the field, Susanna Ryan. She's a laboratory director of forensics DNA analyst at Pure Gold Forensics. She is a forensic DNA consultant at Ryan Forensics. And believe it or not, she's been in the DNA business for over 25 years. Susanna Ryan, thank you for being with us tonight.
Yeah, I don't think the pacemaker spike means that she was like startled or, I mean, I don't think it does. Or that it was, I don't think it doesn't sound as, I don't think it's quite as ominous as it sounds, I guess.
First of all, I want to talk to you about the bloody glove and the rock that were found by a couple. I want to talk to you about how do you get DNA off of a rock that has been out in the elements, and will that affect getting a DNA match, if possible?
Certainly, being out in the elements can have an effect.
They most likely, and they're
Rouse a sleeping 84-year-old lady out of her bed. What for our behavioralist to analyze, along with our law enforcement, he didn't mind staying in the home at least 41.
So when the pacemaker disconnects from the phone, that indicates that she has moved away from the phone, that she's been separated far enough to where it disconnects. Correct? I think that's right. That's what I would assume. It'd be like a Bluetooth headset or something.
1 minute without fear of being detected.
So at 2:28, she has moved away. She's out of the house because the phone's in the house. Shit. Wow.
That's a whole nother can of worms. But what we are learning now, he got in the door himself, no help from Nancy Guthrie. He walked through. Go with me, Tammy Ballard. Think it through. Walks through the front door. Did she have hardwood? Did she have carpet? Is there a rug? What difference would it make when it comes to DNA and trace evidence left behind? Is there a decorative table at the entrance? Is there tchotchke items sitting on the table? Did he touch that table? Did he take saliva from his bite light onto his hand, his gloved hand, and touch anything like that table? What would his shoes leave behind? He made his way through
Josh, you have covered so many cases. Does LE normally not tell the public how someone gained entry? Just depending if it doesn't behoove somebody, if it doesn't help them, they'll hold as much back as they possibly can to not compromise. Sometimes when they're looking for a suspect, they're trying to get people, they want to know. Sometimes these people are the only ones that know the answers to the questions that they're going to ask them. So they don't want to put a lot of it out if they can help it.
The entrance of the home, we believe, and back to her bedroom. What did he pass? Does it matter if what he touched was porous, such as a rug, such as carpet, such as a blanket lying on her living room sofa? Goes into her bedroom, opens her door, turns on her light, and rouses a sleeping 84-year-old lady out of her bed. What evidence did he leave behind, Tammy Ballard?
I would imagine that he touched quite a few things within 41 minutes of being in that residence. And I'm just going to throw it out there that people don't always think that somebody breaking into a home is going to be as comfortable as they are. But San Diego ended up having so many cases where somebody actually took the time to get a drink from the refrigerator, actually eat something while they're in somebody's residence. So you can't really discount anything that may have even been in the
Hold on one second. We'll start that over. FBI usually tells least as possible. I don't know why the public feels so entitled to know everything. Well, I don't know if I feel entitled. It's just, it's just curiosity, really, isn't it?
kitchen. But moving in towards her bedroom, I'm not as excited about something that might be on the floor, but I am sure excited about anything that he may have touched, an interior door handle, anything in her bedroom, around her nightstand, even her sheets. I'm imagining those were collected if she's removed from her bed. So there is nothing that can be overlooked in this situation, and I'm hoping that they have taken multiple items, but again, that's going to extend your time for trying to identify the perpetrator.
Tammy Ballard joining us, DNA expert. I want to talk about the bed sheets, the bed cover, the pillowcase. How is collecting DNA from that, which is a porous surface, different from collecting DNA, for instance, off a doorknob or a light switch?
A doorknob or a light switch at this point, if he's got that potential saliva on his exterior of his gloves or any of his bodily fluids, a doorknob, a doorknob or a light switch, it's a smaller surface area, so much easier to try to recover DNA from a perpetrator. Once you get into bedding and clothing, it's much more of a it's a search, and you're going to have to figure out if you can localize some DNA from a perpetrator and removing DNA from Nancy Guthrie, so from the equation. So it's bedding, clothing, all of those items, there are a lot more work to it just because you know that you're looking for more of a needle in the haystack. Doorknobs, light switches where somebody's actually had to potentially touch those items, those are smaller surface areas and much easier to work with.
Tammy, question. When you have a porous surface, such as a sheet or a pillowcase, would you use an MVAC for that as opposed to standard swabbing on a hard surface?
I'm a big proponent of the MVAC nowadays. I've been doing a lot of cold case review, and I'm seeing some amazing success stories with MVAC. Again, that's going to cover a lot more surface area than swabbings and cuttings from bedding and pillowcases. So I am a fan of the MVAC. You do have to be careful so that you're not creating mixtures on those large surface areas. So what you're trying to do right now is localize something to make sure that you can identify a perpetrator. Hopefully with her bedding, that's going to be something that's pretty much Nancy Guthrie, but you've got to understand that in everybody's home, there are so many mixtures of DNA because of just the nature of people coming into somebody's home. She's got family, friends, littles, or grandchildren. So this is something where hopefully in the bedroom, it's much more of Nancy's DNA so that you're only battling Nancy and a perpetrator and not every single other contributor for a mixture.
Julie says, Google says pacemaker spikes when the pacemaker is actively sending electrical signals to trigger a heartbeat. So did her heart stop? So if spike, well, it's sort of the point of the pacemaker. That's why she has it. Is to assist her heart because she either has arrhythmia, a weak heartbeat, or AFib.
Tammy, when you
or a host of other things, to be honest.
You have and I've worked with bed sheets before. What I was looking for was blood spatter, and we found it underneath the victim's pillow. And the theory was that she shot herself. So there was no way that blood spatter got underneath the pillow where she shot herself, which proved it was a murder, in fact. That said, that was for blood spatter. And I know how we did that, how we ISO'd that portion of the sheet. But when you're looking for DNA, what do you do with something like a sheet? Do you hang it up while you're wearing plastic gloves and you ISO the portion where you don't want to analyze the part that was tucked in down at the bottom of the bed. You've got to ISO the likely location of the sheets where perp left DNA. How do you
Correct.
do it?
So what's going to be very important is where you start right at the beginning. You've got those, hopefully they have amazing photos. They have documentation with orientation. So you know how those bed sheets, bedspreads, anything were oriented. That's going to really cut out some potential surface area. I have no idea, and it would obviously be something that nobody wants to really discuss, but he's in there for 41 minutes. If there's any kind of salt component to it, that's got to be something that's considered. Looking around the carpet, they should have used an alternate light source in the residence. And then also on the bedding, once that gets brought back to the laboratory, you're going to just be picking that apart. But you can really help with controlling that massive amount of surface area by at least documenting well at the scene with photos and orientation.
As much as no one wants to imagine it, there has to be tests for assault. There's no question about that. So let me finish this up. An MVAC, to my understanding, is used on porous surfaces such as carpet, rug, blanket.
I followed a case where this has been used many a time. That they're still trying to use as the Garrett Phillips case. Even though I'm pretty sure that the guy they put on trial that got acquitted was the perp. He was the offender. But I've seen this stuff used on shoelaces, rocks, clothing, all kinds of stuff.
Sheet, pillowcase. Traditional swabbing is used on hard surfaces. Is that correct?
Not really.
Agree, although I've had some cold cases, definitely people that have crossed over the border and ended up in the desert and ended up as homicide victims. And I've had rocks that have had successful results with MVAC. So yes, semi-porous, but also it's a hard surface. So I think the MVAC is pushing a lot of different forward motion when it comes to the items. But it's definitely, MVAC is something very useful to obtaining as many cells as you can. But that being said, if there's something like semen evidence that can be localized with an alternate light source, you're going to be doing what we call presumptive testing, which is a color test essentially to indicate the possibility of semen being present. That can be done, and then you're moving forward with DNA analysis.
We know that investigators have been back at Nancy Guthrie's home today, searching for what? We don't know. They're behind closed doors. On day 25, they're still searching. For everyone out there that is sending in tips, be it on Facebook, Insta, X, Twitter, keep doing it. Don't stop.
Who did Banfield
regarding
who did Banfield interview tonight?
This development that we now know. Oh, hey, one other quick question, Tammy, for right now anyway. Is there a difference if there is rug, carpet, or hardwood floors?
Yes, because the hardwood floors are going to have something that's a lot more easy to detect. Carpet, I did actually spend an entire week in a textile with bloodstain patterns class, and you learn a lot about what you can and can't say, but you know that with carpet, it's going to wick that down. So that's going to be harder to find if it's some sort of semen evidence, something that's not visible like blood. Even blood gets wicked down. So it would be amazing if it was just hardwood. That would be so much simpler. Carpet obviously gives you more work that you've got to overcome, but it can be done.
Well, another issue, the reason I'm asking is because I'm considering the possibility of fiber evidence. I worked in the office where Wayne Williams was tried. That was the first time in U.S. history that fiber evidence of that.
If you guys don't know Wayne Williams, that is the, I believe he's the Atlanta serial killer who claims innocence to this day.
Type was allowed into evidence at trial.
While he sits in prison for the rest of his life.
And it showed Wayne
I don't think he's innocent.
Williams carpet fibers from his vehicle and a unique shag carpet fiber from his parents' home where he lived.
It's also one of the cases that the behavioral analysis unit from the FBI was involved
on the victims' bodies.
Okay.
So I'm very, very interested in potential fiber.
Yeah, I mean, this was from what, the 80s?
Evidence off the defendant, possibly out of his vehicle in Nancy Guthrie's home. As we go to air tonight, investigators have been back in Nancy Guthrie's home throughout the day.
Yeah.
Doing what?
81.
Straight out to Ken Strange joining us, former FBI agent on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, former special agent in charge of the DOJ.
Dude looks like he's about to hit a Call of Duty lobby and do work. Look at that. All right, we'll listen to her.
PI,
the interview.
Author of A Cop's Son. Thank you for being with us, Ken. What do you make of the fact that we now know for sure Nancy Guthrie was rousted out of her bed, an 84-year-old woman, 2 a.m.? What evidence can we get from that? And what does it lead you to believe, Ken?
Yeah, Ken.
Well, I think there's plenty of evidence to obtain from that. She's going to be in motion with one, possibly two other people, and they're probably going to have some kind of a difficulty.
Yeah, me too. But I heard that they're possibly coming back as for maybe a movie or a limited movie series. Mindhunter was fantastic.
She's infirm.
It's pretty shitty that they.
She's almost. Look at it like a sack of potatoes. I hate to say that, but they're going to have to move her out of the house. And again, she's shedding all kinds of DNA, and so are they, most likely. And they're probably going to get her to an egress. And then they'll be looking for a vehicle to either put her into or stuff her into, maybe a trunk and that's what this suggests to me.
Hey, that leads me to another question. Back to Tammy Ballard. Tammy, I was wondering about this as it relates to the gloves the porch guy's wearing. He did that so he wouldn't leave behind DNA and fingerprints. But when you put on a glove,
yeah, I think so.
One of your hands has got to be naked to put on the first glove, right?
Unless he's wearing another pair of gloves.
Yeah, you're right, Tammy. You're right. It looks.
Damn, Nancy got cooked.
Looks like he's wearing a pair of gloves underneath those gloves. I was hoping that we could get some type of transfer DNA, touch DNA off the outside of the gloves as he tried to get her out of bed. It's very delicate DNA work. Okay, Ken Strange, you're right. I want to go to Mike Gould joining us. And Strange, Shipley, Kilashevsky.
Look at that suit. Damn.
Ballard, jump in whenever you have a thought. To Mike Gould, let me tell you who Gould is. Former Nassau County Lieutenant, founding member of the NYPD K-9 unit. He has investigated multiple missing people.
I mean, the orange room is like, that is bold. I love it.
And I can't count all that, but also working with serial killer cases, specifically Gilgo Beach, which I find really interesting that he also worked on Secret Service detail for not one, but two presidents. That said, Gould, thank you for being with us tonight. I want to talk to you about the dogs. You started the NYPD K-9 unit, which is extremely impressive. When you think back, for instance, the Scott Peterson case, a tracker dog tracked Lacey Peterson's scent from Modesto to the San Francisco marina, and she was taken, we believe, hidden in the back of a vehicle or in the back of a boat with a cover over it. One of the two. That far. So, in this case, what are the mechanics? What should the dogs be doing or should have done the moment they got there?
Right, Nancy, thanks. The moment they got there, obviously visual examination of a crime scene is important. Human visual eye, you see a lot inside a house. And frankly,
is that a grand piano?
Dogs wouldn't be that powerful of an odor detecting tool inside the home. Once the body was removed from the home, anywhere, dogs are natural hunters. They're odor detectors. That's how they survive.
He looks like a supervillain.
Predators that rely on finding food. And when we train dogs, that's all we're doing. We're substituting their ability to find something for food. So dogs don't make
It's like Lex Luthor's cousin, Rex Luthor.
moral decisions. They're not looking for an 84-year-old woman. They're looking for the odor or cells, very similar to DNA, skin cells. As I said, we are depositing thousands, hundreds of thousands of skin cells as we sit and move around our house. So the point is, the answer is trailing dogs are very effective. However, they're also highly trained and they're not that available. Usually, as you know, they're usually bloodhounds. Bloodhounds are genetically engineered with floppy ears and wrinkly skin to detect odor, to scrape up get these air
Dude, that's like, what is that, like a
molecules inside their nose for examination. Once these odors are imprinted in a dog's brain, they can almost never be defeated with 95% accuracy, knowing that almost any instrument is a metal detector at the airport, false alerts all the time, but it takes a human to look and corroborate what does it mean? Why did the metal detector go wrong?
That's a very expensive piano.
Answer to your question, yes, they should have used bloodhound, specifically trained for scent identification, like the old movies, Prison Break movies. They give somebody a piece of clothing and the dog identifies that unique odor of that individual and then follows the trail. Once the trail dissipates, and it will, of course, at some point, they're not going to. So you have to know fact from fiction. As I said, Lassie wasn't searching because he thought Timmy was hurt. He was just detecting Timmy's unique odor that was imprinted in the dog's brain forever. And that's what they're doing. They're hunting for odor.
American homeowners, the FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud called title theft.
Let's see. Let's hear it for bloodhounds. My two are snoring like bears. I think mine track are bunnies and cats. They're great dogs. Dubs in the chat for bloodhounds.
Your equity, the target. With just a forged signature, your ownership can be transferred out of your name. And without protection in place, you're left with an emotional and financial free title hit there $1 million to home. Don't lose the equity. In your expertise, how would they have gone about that? That was Nancy's shirt. I mean, is it like in the movies where you let the dog smell the shirt and then go, and they go? How does it work?
Yeah, so this is the problem. As I said, each dog is a specialist in finding maybe 7 or 8 different odors. So a bomb dog isn't finding bombs. They're finding the components of commonly used bombs. Accelerant dogs look for accelerants. The dogs we see at the airport couldn't trail any.
Yeah, and they even have like money sniffing dogs, which is crazy too.
body because
those dubs up.
They're not trained to do it. They're either looking for agriculture, narcotics, or weapons. So you have to understand what the dog specializes in, just like we all specialize in something.
He looks like he has a hairless cat.
So yes, they can do this. Yes, they're available. It's a highly complicated process, just like DNA. You know, DNA and the use of dogs is where science and nature intersects. When I'm doing a case, I work exclusively with scientists to look for topography and certain things that will lead me to the remains of somebody. It's not just a dog, a magical creature that works wonders. So you have to just know what you're looking at. So when you ask, is it possible? Absolutely, it's impossible. But unfortunately, if you, even as a prosecutor or a defense attorney or a law enforcement officer, if you never actually saw how dogs work, you're probably not likely to understand them or use them.
Well, we know that the canine unit from the Border Patrol was brought out. Is it possible, as we were told in the Lacey Peterson case, for a dog to track a scent even if the person is in the car?
Am I low?
Well, again, as I said, the further, just like DNA, as the further the skin cells deteriorate or degrade, there's a point of diminishing returns. It can tell you where the dog stopped. You might know the direction of travel, east, west, and in the right environment, it can go miles. But it's again, you have to understand where fact and fiction really relies. And unfortunately with dogs, we're always using anecdotal information that we may see.
Sometimes I talk over the video, so dude has a cyst by his eye.
Online where a dog found, but dogs are finding human remains. In the Gilgo Beach case, 25 years after or 20 years after they were dropped out there. So they can do amazing things, but they're not infallible.
So, Mike Gould, based on what you just said about the Gilgo Beach case, is it possible if dogs were brought out right now, they could still
I don't see a cyst.
track Nancy Guthrie's scent?
Odor deteriorates just like DNA deteriorates. So the likelihood it degrades. Could they find her alive right now, track her to a location? It's highly, highly questionable if that's that could actually.
Guys, tonight we know investigators back at Nancy Guthrie's home. Doing what? We also have positive information.
Oh, the perp. Gotcha. Sorry. I thought you were talking about Rex Ruker.
That is irrefutable. That Nancy did not go to the door, as many have speculated, and let the perp in. She was rousted out of her bed. What evidentiary avenues does this open up? Also tonight, we are learning that authorities are trying to track not just cell phone usage in the area, but the usage of smart watches. Joining me is Todd Shipley.
Dubs in the chat. If you know, you know.
Digital cybercrime expert, former detective sergeant, Reno PD, 25 years in law enforcement, author of Surviving a Cyber Attack, author of Investigating Internet Crimes. Todd, thank you for being with us. Explain to me how a smartwatch could be tracked just like a cell phone.
Well, smartwatches operate just like a cell phone because depending on the make and model of the watch, they've got cellular data connected to it as well as a connection to a cell phone. It's got Bluetooth, it's got all the different kinds of connecting things that we're looking for when we're going.
It's just how we show our appreciation for certain things. You know, certain things come up in the course of the night, and we show our appreciation by throwing dubs in the chat. Dubs means winning. Dub, W. That's it.
Going on scene. And so if they're starting to look for these kinds of things, they're looking for a level of technology that hadn't been looked at before. And so we need to understand better what they're looking for in the house, because we've never heard if in the house Nancy has a router that the Wi-Fi on your phone could have connected to. if they've got
We appreciate dogs, you know, so we throw dubs in the chat for the dogs. Shout out the dogs.
an Apple phone, your Apple phone's always looking for a Wi-Fi connection and could have left some evidence there about the phone or anybody nearby, because your Wi-Fi on your Apple phones in particular tries to connect as it's going down the road to everything. So there's potentially a lot of evidence that could be found if they're looking for it. And why they're looking for it now and not 25 days ago, I don't know.
That's it. Nothing more.
Got a question. We know that smartwatch data has been used in multiple cases. For instance, you know the name Laken Riley, the nursing student that was hunted and assaulted and murdered on UGA campus when she was out in broad daylight for a jog. Laken's Garmin device showed her.
Dude, those Garmin watches are sick. Yeah, you only need, I mean, you can as many dubs as you want, but
struggle, her heartbeat elevating as she struggled to live and fight. And it even showed her movements during the struggle. And it showed the moment her heart stopped beating. There's also the Richard Debate case. I don't know if you remember that one or not, but he murdered his wife. And he told police that assailants had broken into the home, masked, of course, and had tied him up, and he survived, but his wife, no theft, was murdered. He gave a very elaborate, detailed statement and a timeline. But when her smartwatch data was reviewed, it showed.
Oh, hold on. I got something for you. Hold on. Fat little Frenchies. Fat little Frenchie fats. Hold on, sure. I can keep playing this, I guess.
She was up walking around all over the house, well past the time. He said she had been shot dead. Well past it. His story didn't fit together. And then Suzanne Morphew. Now, according to prosecutors, this is yet to go to trial and be proven. According to prosecutors, smartwatch data shows Suzanne Morphew running through her house, according to them, being chased by her husband, Barry Morphew, with a dart gun with an animal tranquilizer in it. And you can see the running around the home just before she's killed. So
it's officially Julie's birthday. Dubs in the chat for Julie. Happy birthday. You know, if you don't want to participate, you want to be a stick in the mud about it, fine.
What could we get when the cell phone data dump takes place? I know it's hard to distinguish between a smartwatch and a cell phone, assuming the smartwatch is connected to cellular. You know, like some people can send emails, they can even talk on their phone. That's connected to cellular. I know it's hard, you can't really tell the difference, but you get the frequency. You can't tell me. Take a look at the porch guy, everybody. He is totally kitted out. He's got his walkie-talkie that he's talking to an accomplice. He's got on multiple pairs of gloves.
It's true, though, that Macho has been running a underground, I guess it would be a milk-bone cartel. And I just found this out. He's been living a double life. There he is. Little shit. Can't believe it. Right under my nose, he was doing it the whole time. El Macho. You've heard of El Chapo.
He's got on a ski mask. He has a backpack full of gear.
That's El Macho, baby.
It's very hard for me to believe that he and his cohort are not synchronizing on their watches. So what could I get, Shipley, from his and his cohorts' smartwatches? What kind of data?
Well, in theory, exactly the same kind of stuff you're talking about. They're going to have his movements. The health app on Apple Watches tracks your steps up and down, altitude, all kinds of things. So they could track him very simply if they had that application, because the smartwatches are tied to a phone generally. So there's going to be text messages. There's going to be all kinds of information there that's going to show.
All right, I'll sing happy birthday. Let me see. This video is from after he's already gone inside. That's why the backpack is full. All right, here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Julie. Happy birthday to you.
Show exactly what that person did if they can find the watch.
And another question regarding smartwatches. We know Nancy's was left behind, but regarding the perps, what if it was a type of watch that connected to Bluetooth, not to cell? Could it still be traced?
We're talking feet rather than, cellular, which could be any place along the way that we're going to find it within miles. So technically, yes.
All right, I'm done with this. Let's just get to Banfield and then be done with.
Hey everyone,
Where's her new show? Happy birthday to you. Damn.
Hey
She's going straight clown show.
everyone, I'm Ashley Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. It is February 25th, which means it's day 25 at the checkout. And after your purchase, they're going to ask you where.
Hold on 1 second.
Dead Serious sent you.
There's El Macho. Can you hear him? He's been caught. Son of a bitch.
Also, just click the link below. Very easy. Matt, what do you make of this flurry of activity? More activity than we've seen in a week at Nancy Guthrie's home. And we're now coming, towards the end of week 4.
Well, we're trying to read tea leaves at this point, right? We've got, we're trying to interpret information. Like I saw the clips of those people walking into the house. Like those look like prosecutors to me. I guess there's some information that's come out, apparently been confirmed, that the U.S. Attorney's Office did have prosecutors go to the place. Actually, for me, when you prosecute homicides, if you do it long enough, you will inevitably have two experiences. One is you will work task forces with FBI field agents, and they are some of the best police officers I've ever had the honor of working cases with. And I've done those high profile, sheriff in front of the camera cases, and I've done several of them. And the FBI is the best in the world at tracking down missing people. They also have investigative tools that are available to them. They can do a thing called an administrative drop warrant. As a state prosecutor, you have to get a search warrant now to get phone records, for example. The FBI can just literally get them in about 2 hours if you get a motivated enough agent, but it's a completely different process, 1,000 times more efficient. And then, of course, you've got Quantico, which is where a lot of these DNA techniques are literally invented. Arguably, depending on who you talk to, forensically, it's the best lab in the world. The UK has some really good forensic scientists over there, but Quantico is kind of the gold standard. They're not using Quantico. They're using a crime lab in Florida, which is a big head scratcher to me.
Have her. It's great, though. Have her. They're amazing. The DNA International in Deerfield Beach has solved
I hope
lots
they are.
of whole cases.
But I also just heard that there was some struggle over a DNA mixture. I think that was misreported because DNA mixtures happen all the time. I've prosecuted personally. I did a double homicide where we had triple genetic mixtures and everything, and there's nothing unusual about that. So
that by the way, may have been the sheriff misspeaking. And I'll only say this: the lab in Florida is not talking. The sheriff is talking for everybody, and he said something like they're struggling with the mixture. And it wasn't long before the reporting came out. I think it was 24 hours, and the report came out. No, it's a partial sample, meaning they didn't get enough for a CODIS sample. That it maybe it was maybe it was a mixture, maybe that happened, but
no,
the issue was it was two different things.
That in the forensic world, actually, that is night and day, apples and oranges. And when you say that the sheriff misspoke, I think we have to say the sheriff misspoke again. And I guarantee in that lab, if they're a properly accredited lab, the director of that lab was probably pulling his hair out or her hair out when they heard that. They weren't struggling with a mixture, because they deal with mixtures in every sexual assault case. You have a mixture in even the purest ones. You're going to get the epithelial cells from your victim mixed with the sperm fraction DNA of your bad guy over and over and over again. So if that is a lab that is even halfway professional, and I have no reason to doubt that they're anything but.
And we've heard great things.
They were losing their minds because somebody was speaking for them who clearly doesn't understand the science.
Entirely possible. Let me ask you this about these people who've arrived today. Like, you're right. Fox Digital did report that they had a confirmation from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Arizona that federal prosecutors visited Nancy's property to assist the FBI with a, quote, routine legal process. Is that moving the case forward from where they are? Is it possible that it's something that I just learned the term today, a clean team? Now, I don't know if you've heard that before, but I had to look it up, and it means basically fresh eyes, fresh eyes coming in and starting over and looking at this maybe with a new group.
That brings me to the second thing you deal with if you do homicides long enough. You will, in addition to the feds being awesome on the street level, you will eventually butt heads with somebody in the U.S. Attorney's Office who might have an interest in your case. And I've fought wars and won them all against eager U.S. attorneys who wanted to come in and do some of the murders we were working on in Orange County. And you fight that fight. It's known as dual jurisdiction, where you have a state jurisdictional venue, I guess we could say.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll do a live about that, or if I'll just do like a sort of a reaction video to it. But I haven't seen it yet, and I'm very curious. But I don't want to watch it and then react to it. I like to wait and watch.
Or the state jurisdiction to prosecute a case, and there might be a dual federal thing. Like I had one big battle with the local guys, and they were fine except for this one guy that I was butting heads with. But that was
like, by the way, like Luigi Mangione.
Right, not dissimilar at all. But that was one where the murder happened on a federal military base within Orange County, so we both had jurisdiction. So look, under 99.9% of the cases, Ashley, I got to tell you, like, state prosecutors are almost always going to be the better option because they have a lot of experience in murder cases. Like almost every murder case is a state case. There are some cases that can be federal, but they're few and far between. What U.S. attorneys or federal prosecutors are very good at, they're good at RICO stuff, going after.
Yes, she does have she did a new one, I believe. I haven't seen it yet, though.
For organized crime. And also white collar crime, which is a huge bulk of what they do. In fact, a lot of people don't know this. They recruit FBI agents straight out of law school. I was recruited by the FBI out of law school, almost did it. And so when it comes to street crime, which this would be considered, this is like you're in the gristle, bloody murder. State prosecutors are almost always more experienced and better. Now, I hope, Ashley, that these were federal prosecutors that are coming in, that they have a federal theory on how the feds can assert jurisdiction, because this has been, in my opinion here, and I want to be fair, I defend police officers now. I have a soft spot for cops. They have a very, very difficult job. I've stood on that stage before with 25 cameras in front of us, as watching my elected DA or our elected sheriff try to field questions on big cases. It's a really tough job. That said, in my opinion, just my opinion, this is a clown show in Pima County. The DA should have been there from day one. If these are the first prosecutors that have been to that scene, that's shameful. When you have a case like this, it's not just about figuring out the mystery. It's about holding the person who did it accountable. And what that means is you have to prepare the prosecution long before you even get a suspect. And also all these times where this guy's rolling out, he's having his SWAT team go out and put handcuffs on people. If that's true, and I have no inside knowledge other than what I've read, but the Uber Eats guy, apparently they cuffed him, they detained him. Look, that's really heavy-handed. It looks, maybe there's a good
I believe that she was a prosecutor and a damn good one too. I mean, she's not a bump on a log. I mean, she's I don't know.
reason, and I'm prepared to be wrong, looks performative to me by the sheriff. I was in the homicide unit for 17 years, and I tried 133 jury trials, Ashley. I can't recall a single time that we needed a SWAT team to arrest a murder suspect. And I dealt with Russian mafia and gang members. It's like, I don't know what they're doing. And the person who can put the brakes on that is the prosecutor who's going to be responsible for that. And you go in heavy-handed like that, that's a good way to get your department sued, in my opinion. And it also it ultimately looks bad in front of a jury. You have to treat the case from day one like you're going to catch the guy, and you've got to hold him accountable for the Guthrie family. And you need a prosecutor to be working hand in glove with the investigators and not even directing it, but just kind of a different set of eyes with different considerations, somebody that has prosecuted murders before and can anticipate defense motions so the case doesn't get screwed up by overzealous detectives or cops that want to kick in doors. This is amateur hour in Pima County. The DA there is a woman named Laura Conover, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've been really active behind the scenes and we haven't seen her. But if those were the first prosecutors that have been inside that house, the voters, in my opinion, of Pima County need to clear out their law enforcement leadership and elect people that are more responsible, because all I've seen is a failure. And in my opinion here, a failure of the sheriff and a failure of the law enforcement leadership of Pima County to bring justice to this family. And it's maddening to me. I had to stop watching this about a week ago because it was so frustrating.
Well, I don't think you're the only one. We're tracking what's going on basically in the Twitterverse and online. And that's where a huge conversation, has been really going after this sheriff for the things that have happened.
Can I add something there?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
yeah, no worries.
Do you mind? No, it's, you have to anticipate that when you go to the media, when you ask for the public's help, you are going to get a deluge of people that, well-meaning people that want to help. But
yeah, bump on a log. It's a term.
Part of that also is you have to be prepared to answer legitimate questions from the media, and you have to be prepared to get some heat. Now, I always hated it, okay, when a talking head would come in and criticize my cops or criticize me about something that we were doing on a high-profile case. So I get it. However, I was on your former colleague's show, our mutual friend Elizabeth Vargas, and she's a pro, and I'm in the green room. This is last week, and this is after the gloves were found down the road, right? We talked about that a little bit on your show. So you're going to get DNA off those gloves. And one of the questions that she had, and she interviewed the sheriff. He stopped doing press conferences, but he started doing individual interviews.
Cherry picked, yeah.
Yeah, whatever, good. But Elizabeth Vargas is a real journalist. She's a pro.
Yes.
And she asked the question. She's like, okay, so you got those gloves. Or Mrs. Guthrie's DNA were they found on the gloves? And this is like 3 days after that story broke that they found the gloves. And not only did he appear not to know the answer to that question, he pushed back on her and said, you guys in the media. And it's like, you guys in the media, what are you talking about, dude? You called the media. It's like, you have to expect questions like that. How can you not know the answer? And I have no
Sorry. So Banfield wasn't a lawyer. She was a journalist or a, was it, what did they call that? A journalism law reporter. So, excuse me. Not a lawyer.
Problem at all. Please understand, with a law enforcement professional going, active investigation, I'm afraid I can't answer that question. Or I don't want to say, but scratching your head going, well, I have to ask my people or something like that. I mean, it's just, it undermines the integrity of law enforcement, and it certainly undermines the public confidence in law enforcement. And a lot of this stuff, if they catch this guy tonight, whoever he is, or whoever they are, and this prosecution starts, I guarantee that the defense already has mistakes in their tool belt that they're going to be able to use against the prosecutors because of some of the things that we've been seeing. And look, another thing, in fairness, a lot of these cases take months, years sometimes. I prosecuted cases from the 1970s, my Rodney Alcala case. So sometimes it takes a while, but nobody should be arguing with the FBI. There shouldn't be a feud between locals and feds that are there to help. So very long answer to your question. I hope it's the feds. I hope they've got an angle, and I hope they're taking everything over, because that's the only way, in my view, that this can be solved. And that is not a criticism one bit of the fine, hardworking police officers working for Pima County Sheriff's Department. I've dealt with them before. And I've dealt with Pima County. I did it on a very high profile case out of Newport Beach, and they were top notch, absolutely amazing law enforcement.
That's what we're hearing, Matt. We're hearing that the guys on the ground are working their asses off, and they are working day and night, getting very little sleep. There were, and many of them.
Oh, well, I can answer. I'll answer that question right now. Josh, before the end of the show tonight, can you share with us if you think this case is going to, a case that takes a long time to solve? I know no one knows, but it seems like the case is stalling. So there's always a chance that, there'll be some major breaking news where, they've been tracking somebody this whole time. And we'll wake up tomorrow and they'll have somebody in custody that they've arrested or something like that. But I think that the urgency has died in the case, because I don't think that they are looking for Nancy as if she is alive. Because it's been so long now. So I hope that it won't be too much longer. I hope they have a ton of evidence, but it just seems disorganized at this point, and I think that would lend itself to this maybe taking some time.
Are pissed off themselves. I mean, I think Brian Enton had a report 2 weeks ago saying he's talking to these guys and many of them don't know who's in charge, which was shocking as well.
They're being failed by their leadership, and that includes Laura Khan over the DA. Sorry.
But let's also say, and props to the good men and women who are working this case on the ground, because they are working really hard. But one of the things that also Brian Enton reported was that he knew today, amongst the confirmation that these are federal prosecutors at Nancy's house today, Brian also knew that local Pima homicide was there, at least one member. So if that is the case, if the federal prosecutors are there assisting the FBI with a, quote, routine legal process, and a Pima homicide investigator is there, and let me just be really clear, we don't know that Nancy Guthrie has been murdered. We don't know that yet. Everybody has their opinions and theories on what's happened, and it is, 4 weeks in at this point, but we don't know that to be fact. It's just that these investigations have to happen. So a local Pima County homicide detective is there with the federal prosecutors and the FBI. Now you got 3 agencies. Tell me what that tells you.
Well, okay, it should be working
Good night, Donna. Thank you for being here.
that way. And let's not forget, Border Patrol was there on that stage, I think, the very first day. So that's, look, when you have a case like this, that's what you do. You go all hands on deck. You reach out. Hopefully the FBI will help you because their resources and their agents are fantastic. And you bring what's happening. There's almost 2 different tracks here, Ashley. Having been in that room so many times, you've got your political class and you've got all of that stuff, sheriff, elected DA, you've got all those people. And on the ground, you've got dedicated, hardworking professionals, some of whom I guarantee have probably not slept more than 4 hours a night since this thing started. You got your rank and file, hard-nosed gumshoe cops, and they, I guarantee, are grateful for the FBI agents. They're grateful for the resources that are available to them. So you've got that, and they have bonded now. There should be a prosecutor in that room. And again, I want to be wrong. I want to be fair to Laura Conover. I want to be fair to the sheriff, but I've reached a point where personally, my heart breaks for this family. I've done a million of these, and this is not how you do it. And so I feel bad for the hardworking women and men in law enforcement and the CSI professionals as well.
What were they doing today? What do you think specifically? They were inside and they were outside walking the perimeter in suits. What do you think?
I got to be honest with you. I have never seen so many ex-law enforcement or current law enforcement or people even inside the sheriff. I've never seen an investigation criticized so much. I just not by peers, not by ex-law enforcement. I mean, there is, you know, I don't know. I've never seen this. Not like this. Not like this. And I've seen a lot of like dissent and disgruntledness and things like that, but never anything like this. I can't think of another case.
I think was actually happening.
Well, I think if that's the first time federal prosecutors have seen it, remember, we've got those blood drops outside. I have always believed that there's a very telling scene regarding the blood inside the home, which we have not seen yet.
Matt, I'll tell you what, I had a break earlier this week from a very well-informed source connected to this investigation, law enforcement source, who said the blood droplets outside the home, outside on Nancy's front entryway on the tiles, it is the similar pattern inside the home. Blood droplets, but not, as it was described to me, not a footsteps through the blood, not a sign of a struggle, just those blood droplets inside the home as well. And I was not able to get from that source where exactly.
Yeah. Well, remember going back to the very first day, and again, I have a hard time trusting anything that this sheriff has said personally. But he did say that first day, one of the things I don't think he walked back because he keeps saying one thing and then he'll come back and walk it back later.
So there was some evidence inside the home that was concerning enough to get the homicide detectives out.
Right. And also they said she was abducted from her bed. Remember that?
And then he walked that back. And then Savannah yesterday.
I've seen, but there's a lot of cases that I've followed that have had national attention. But never. I just still, I mean, unless you can think of one, I can't. I'm thinking I can't think of anything.
Released an Instagram that literally said the words, "In the dark of night, take."
Well, I mean, I don't know why it is. Other than, I guess they feel like the sheriff's not doing it properly. I think that's sort of what that's what they're feeling.
Taken from her bed. Those were Savannah's words, and she's a journalist and she knows her words. I don't know if she's speaking literally or figuratively, but that's now twice we've heard that.
And my heart just breaks for her. And
haters gonna hate. I've heard this. Yeah, I've heard that. That's not good.
and any family member that is suffering as a result of this thing, this is the most apoplectic thing a person can experience. It's absolutely horrific. But no, the first thing that you want to look at if you're a prosecutor is there's an entire forensic discipline known as blood spatter evidence. A lot of people mispronounce it, say splatter with an L. It's spatter, S-P-A-T-T-E-R, where essentially you closely examine, and blood is a very viscous material, as we all know. We're all familiar with blood, but it's like you can tell directionally. A lot of times if somebody was stabbed or beaten, you have a thing called cast off that can be on the ceiling. There are so many different aspects of that. The way the blood falls, you can get directions out of it. You can learn a lot of information just as, trying to understand it. So if there's blood in her bed, that tells you a ton, right?
They haven't said that.
No, they haven't said that. I'm saying, and no, they haven't said it. I'm saying if they knew that she was taken from her bed and they keep repeating that, that's very different than somebody knocking on the door and her going to answer it and getting snapped.
Well, the Koberger case, they had a suspect in custody pretty fast. They were criticized, but not like this.
From her doorstep.
And very different, Matt, than say her potentially hearing a noise and coming out of her bedroom and startling a burglar who was only there to steal. To that, we've also learned from the New York Times, who interviewed a friend of Nancy's, that she had recently started wearing powerful hearing aids, which means you take them out at night, which means it would be hard to maybe hear something going on in the home. This episode is sponsored by Cowboy Colostrum. And if you have been trying to fix your gut health, this might be something you want to look into. You know that colostrum is packed with nutrients that support your gut, right?
So 6 weeks, but but the thing was that they had Koberger in their sights for quite some time.
Support your immune system, your skin, even your hair and your energy levels. Cowboy colostrum, you can mix.
So to answer your question, what are they looking for? I think that obviously that has not been cleaned up yet, unless, again, after the sheriff returned the property after less than 30 hours of CSI workup, which was another head spinner for me and everybody else, I guarantee, that has worked these cases before. But unless they cleaned it up when they went in, that should be all of that stuff should be preserved. It should be something that a prosecutor would want to look at, because depending on what that looks like, that can tell you a whole bunch. Now, if it's just blood droplets in the hallway, even that can tell you a lot, because and look, my Kathy Torres case, I know you read my book, but that was one where we had arterial bleeding on the inside of a trunk lid. We had two people that loaded her into the car, and that was hugely significant because that meant her heart was still beating. That meant the guy that came along later was not an accessory after the fact murder, but in fact was a principal to the murder, because an arterial spurt meant.
First, sorry. Here's how this is going to go. If in the next week they have their guy, that they have this guy, and they think that, we've arrested him and blah, 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 or arrested them or whatever, and people are going to go, they knew the whole time. Everybody was freaking out about it. But the longer it goes on, the more critical they'll get. And that's, if you remember in the Brian Koberger case, and I remember I felt actually really confident. Actually, the night before he got arrested, I did a video where I said that I would imagine that they're getting ready to arrest somebody because there was no reward offered at all. None. Not by Crime Stoppers, not by the FBI. They weren't asking for really any information they put the car out there. Other than that, there was nothing. They weren't asking for anything. They weren't offering anything. So, and I remember thinking, and in Idaho, Crime Stoppers Idaho South has a very, or North, has a very active Crime Stoppers tip line that pays out all the time. It's just a very active Crime Stopper tip line. They weren't involved at all. because the FBI didn't need them. They didn't need them at all. So, like I said, I remember going, well, look, there's a reason they're not offering any, there's a reason they're not offering rewards, because they don't need to. They're tailing somebody. I don't feel like that's the case here.
And her heart pumped that blood out when she was alive. So you can get a tremendous amount of really good evidence from looking at the blood. And I don't know, I'm guessing that's the first thing I would ask to see if I was the prosecutor. But of course, if I was the prosecutor or any of the prosecutors in Orange County, LA County, or anywhere else that handles these things.
I put that video out. I remember doing it. And the very next day, the next morning, Koberg was arrested.
Professionally, you'd have a prosecutor there that night before the blood is even coagulated. That's the way it should work. That way you've got another mind who is experienced and can anticipate, like I said, what is going to come at you from the defense. And the DA, from what I've seen, maybe working really hard behind the scenes, but she's been a ghost, at least publicly. And maybe that just means she's way more professional than the sheriff. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Arizona politics. I don't know who the good guys.
Yeah, but he's been criticized by people, not other law enforcement agencies.
Are the bad guys. I have nothing to do with that. That is my objective opinion based on what we've been seeing and that's been widely reported.
Which brings me to the next round of vehicles that arrived after the white, about a half hour after the white vehicles arrived, about several.
Probably not. Probably not. No, I don't. I mean, it's a lot of money.
Black SUVs, a convoy, it's been described as a convoy of black SUVs arrived. One of them that was in the middle had all the windows darkened, and it ended up pulling into the garage. The door,
my After Dark show, when it's people's birthday, I sing them.
The garage came down, and apparently whomever was in there was inside the house for about an hour before the garage door came back up, and that vehicle sped out quickly.
Be on there tomorrow.
I have my theories on what that could be, possibly the family coming to the home. But if it is still a crime, at least if it's still a scene where they want to see where the crime happened, because it's not officially a crime scene anymore, would the family have gone into the home if the blood were still on the floor?
Yeah, there's 100 different reasons why that might have been family. I mean, they drove right into the garage. There was a heavily tinted window, so it was clearly somebody that didn't want to be seen by the media. So I wouldn't at all be surprised. And that could also be family just wanting to get belongings in the house that have nothing to do with the investigation, just wanted to recover them. And you know, these people have huge hearts, like those FBI agents, and I guarantee those homicide detectives, and anything you can do that doesn't compromise the integrity of a crime scene, you want to do if it can alleviate just a little bit of the grief for the family. So that could be something personal that they just wanted to go in and get, something they might want to look for, or it could be they wanted to perhaps access to something. Maybe a combo to a safe wasn't working. There's 100 different reasons why that could be a family member, or maybe somebody else. That could be the DA herself finally showing up 4 weeks into this, which I hope not. That would be, and look, maybe she was there the first night, nobody saw. I don't know, but it could be anything. And again, we're trying to read tea leaves because the information that's been provided has been schizophrenic, if I can use a term, right? It's like we're told one thing one day, then another.
Right.
Yeah, you do. Any income.
The family, you know, nobody's ruled out. The family's ruled out. You know, the family's not ruled out. We're keeping the car.
I have news on that.
I'm getting whiplash listening.
I have news on that. So obviously my source early on said that the focus right from the jump on day one was my brother-in-law, and the sheriff tore into me and didn't say my name, but said, absolutely not, but we're not ruling out family. And then the sheriff came out and said, they're all cleared, including spouses. And now Arizona Family, which is, of course, that consortium that owns 2 TV stations in Northern Arizona, Brianna Whitney reports this. This is her tweet. Multiple people have asked me what the status is on Annie Guthrie's car after it was taken for processing in the case. And then she says, I asked the Pima County Sheriff's Department today, and I just received this response, quote, all we can say at this time, comma, the vehicle is still part of the investigation. But if they've cleared the family members and their spouses, why would they keep the vehicle for part of the investigation?
Okay. So number one, all right, I don't even know where to start with this.
Oh, God.
One of the things that you learn is that you have to keep an open mind at all times. Okay. And when you have a mystery like this, you start with your list of suspects with the population of the earth. Okay. And I cannot tell you, Ashley, how many times I thought a case was one thing, and then there is a radical change, like a piece of evidence is discovered that turns the whole thing upside down. And my detectives, like on my Daniel Wozniak case, you remember, like the killer murdered a young man, war hero, because he wanted to get out his $65,000 in his bank account, and he figured out what his PIN was. So he murders him, takes his ATM card, cuts off his head, but wants a reason why
Great story, Matt. Thank you.
he can't be found. So he decides part of his plan, he's going to lure another mutual friend to his murder victim's apartment, and he killed him. That's the one on the military base. Kills him someplace else. So he lures this poor young woman named Julie Kibuishi, totally innocent, murders her, and stages the entire crime scene to make it look like Sam Herr, his first victim, killed her. Utterly diabolical. And I mean, this is embarrassing to admit, but I went into that scene and I bought it. I'm like, okay, well, clearly this is some sort of lover's quarrel between the two of them. And the parents were insistent that they weren't dating, but what do parents know, right? Like, and my detectives, to their credit, were saying, no, this is weird. That's not it. And they were right. And all of a sudden we learned that this was one of the first witnesses. Like, it was, who would ever believe that somebody would come up with a scheme that diabolical? So
Brendan Banfield did. I mean, Brendan Banfield and his nanny, they did.
Yeah, I agree that you tell them they're cleared, see what they'll do next. But, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you rule it out, you rule people out when you have a suspect and you figure out the case. No, like, and by the way, the sheriff doesn't get to rule people out. He doesn't have charging authority. That is a prosecutorial agency that makes that call, not the sheriff. That's a TV thing. The idea that the cops are ruling somebody out, that means nothing, because they don't have the ability to file charges. They can request charges from the DA. They can book people. That's very different than the formal criminal charging process in the United States.
All right. So you guys just heard it I sort of thought that that they can request, but he can't actually clear them. I mean, he publicly he can say that they're not the focus of the investigation or that they're cleared, but it almost means nothing.
So, and I've had case after case where I think it's one thing, and I had a case with a guy who we believed that it was he's very wealthy, lived in Newport Coast, murdered his wife, and they were in the process of a divorce, and there was a lot of money at stake in the divorce. And so I file what's known as a special cert for financial gain. So it's a murder, strangled her to death, dumped her in a trash can in San Diego County, comes back. And I firmly believed that obviously this has got to be it. Well, then we get into the computers. The computers come back. Turns out what was actually happening, turns out she had a ton of money and her family had a lot of money. His family had a lot of money. Their big dispute was he kept going and trying to think of a polite way to say this, engaging in the services of sex workers without using proper protection and giving his wife STDs. And that's what they were fighting about. So I've already charged him, believing that money is at least part of the motive to do this. And then I had to go and dismiss that enhancement the same day as soon as I subjectively became aware, like, oh, that's what they're fighting about. I can no longer have faith in the charges. And ethically, as a prosecutor, you got to dump it. So you have to have an open mind through the end of the trial on these things. So the idea that the sheriff is making a call and saying we are eliminating this person as a suspect or that person as a suspect, how do you know until you figured out the case? And clearly they haven't done that. This could be somebody else who did it, but you just don't know. So, and everybody's presumed innocent, and I'm throwing zero shade or accusations at anybody.
Right.
But I'm saying that the process of a sheriff going, I have eliminated that person. Dude, until you have a suspect in custody who gives you a story that you believe, or that you're able to piece it together with their phone records or their computer records, and you have a near complete picture of how this happened, the entire world is a suspect.
Right. He's right.
Seems to have done it very quickly as well, because like my source said, and I still believe it based on the actions of the police, the source said that right away, the Pima County Sheriff's Department zeroed in on that family member, and they towed the car. They returned the scene right away. They said they called the search off within 24 hours of Mrs. Guthrie disappearing, and said the words, "There's no threat to the public. There's no reason for anybody in the public to be concerned." And then showed up at night, photographing in that home, the family member's home, for 3 hours. And so the actions certainly seemed to speak to the reporting that I had, which was that was their focus. And so very, very quickly, suddenly,
This guy's flabbergasted.
he's saying
He's so flabbergasted.
everyone's cleared, and yet won't return the vehicle that they towed under warrant.
Well, not only that, but I mean, that's just another of the hundred statements from the sheriff that at first I was sympathetic, and I'm really not anymore. I saw that video, and look, I'm a man, okay, and I've had FBI firearms training. I've been threatened a million times. That video is terrifying to me. Guy in a balaclava showing up in the middle of the night. How do you announce to the public that they are not at risk when that guy, and he's still on the loose? That
To be fair, when he made the statement, they hadn't yet seen that video.
Right,
They hadn't yet.
right. Well, no, but to be
it sure was scary. 24 hours afterwards, 24 hours after the announcement that she's missing, the announcement is, "You're all fine."
Yeah, everybody's cool. And then what, a week or two later, we get those images. Turns out everybody not so cool anymore. Like that guy's friggin' scary. Imagine if
It absolutely is scary.
you're the same demographic as that poor Nancy Guthrie.
I think the reason he said that he was a man is because he was comparing himself to an elderly woman that was in her house. I think that's all he meant by that.
Right? Like if you're an elderly person living in Pima County, how secure do you feel with the assurances of a sheriff who says everybody's good, nobody's at risk, and then a few days later, the boogeyman turns up on a video? And again, that's just amateurish, poor leadership, poor law enforcement leadership in my view.
Once bitten, twice shy. I recall in the days after.
And it is terrifying. That video, when I saw that video, it made my stomach drop.
After the Idaho 4 were murdered in their beds, we were all told, "Oh, there's nothing to be concerned about. There's no risk out there. This was a targeted attack.
Terrifying.
There's no risk to the community." Well, there was 6 weeks worth of the worst risk to the community. And he was walking about the cabin and sitting next to associates at Washington State University. And Brian Koberger was out there, and we were told otherwise. And so now I'm concerned because it feels like a bit of a repeat. We're told, nope, there's no risk to the community, when in fact there is a risk to the community. It just makes me wonder where his focus was and where his department's focus was on that day.
Well, and can I tell you the difference? And I'm with you 100% on that. On Koberger, which we both covered, right? Like you had me on your show a bunch on that. Yeah. And that, look, the difference between the Brian Koberger case and this one is you had really good leadership on their investigative team, which is I was super impressed by, because that's a very small area. Right. The person who let everybody down, in my view, again, just my opinion, was the prosecutor who came off the death penalty. That's another story. But the difference is they had Koberger pretty much ID'd very quickly, and they were following him. That whole drive, the video that we saw where they pull him over twice in like a couple of hours, they were onto him, and they were monitoring him. They were watching him. So I'm a little more comfortable there, because they figured out very early who did it as the investigation was proceeding, and as
they lied to us. But they lied to us. Lied to us. And I will tell you this, that to me, again, once bitten, twice shy as a reporter, I watched the police chief. He filmed a video and posted it on the Moscow police website saying, "We have no suspects. There is no one." And it was the day before that they'd identified him with ID, with his DNA. It was the day before that they identified him with his DNA and knew exactly who they were after, and then recorded and posted, "We have no suspects." So I have been lied to before, and I get it. I get it. It is the purview of the police. It's not illegal to lie to the press or the public. But as a reporter, my boss is
Sure, and I get that, and I don't disagree at all. But if you're gonna, I have less of a problem with that if you've got the guy ID'd and you want to put him at ease so you can effectuate a safe arrest. Like if that means a little BS to the press because you got the guy, I have much less of a problem with that than announcing in a case like this, no danger to the public, and when this guy is obviously incredibly dangerous and he is out there right now. And I mean, look, those images, and they released another one today, actually, that it was being reported that maybe it was on a different night. Another guy in a balaclava.
Well,
it looks like the same guy.
Again, the mess here. I mean, they released them all. Many of us in the true crime community said, well, wait, this image, he's not wearing a backpack or a gun. Is it the same guy? What's going on? And, you know, a couple weeks later, it's confirmed that, well, it's confirmed through every source that every outlet has, other than the sheriff, that it is a different night. And the sheriff saying, well, that's all speculative. But the sources that every other media outlet has said, no, that is confirmed. It is.
Yeah, but she got to understand why they lied in that case.
A different night.
I mean, it only makes sense why they would lie.
Right. So we had the pictures.
I don't like that word either.
But weeks later, we find out they're a different night.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to the public and ask for help, you got to expect the heat, and you got to expect a lot of people
scrutiny.
And look, when you do that, this is a part of the deal. Like, act like you've been in the end zone before, dude, as they say in the NFL, right? Like, you know, be professional about it, understand what that means. And I have no problem appealing to the public. I've done that before on cases in conjunction with the FBI and local police, but it's something you map out, you strategize, and you're prepared. You've got a phone bank waiting to accept the calls. And the vast majority of people, you can break them down into three groups, right? You got people that really want to help, and that's going to be the vast majority of them. And I saw a weird guy walking down the street in September, you know, and they're people that they mean well. You got to chase all those things down. It consumes a tremendous amount of resources, but it's a part of that. And every once in a while you get lucky and you hit a home run. Most of them are, I heard I heard noises, but it might've been the raccoons. Or I heard somebody screaming, but my neighbor's wife yells at them a lot. Like, most of them the vast majority go nowhere. The second group is.
Listen. Hi. Say hi. Say hi. Can you hear him?
You got your Looney Tunes that come out and say the alien, I know it was aliens that abducted her, blah, blah, blah. And those come out, and that's just a part of the modern world. And then also, and I think we talked about this before, you got your scammers and all of those friggin' letters on all of that stuff none of those are real. None of those are from this guy. They're all scams. And even the back and forth, you know, in my private practice, a few times I've been brought in to try to help people as almost like a fixer, these people that get scammed, the people that actually do call and you're dealing, last one I dealt with was in the Philippines, and that the language, you know, the back and forth, like, well, you don't trust me, so now I'm only going to do it this way. That is exactly how they sound. They try to personalize it. It's all bullshit. It is all bullshit. Those parasites are, so you got well-meaning people, you get your crazies, and now we have parasites in the modern era that attempt to cash in on the absolutely horrific grief of this poor family. And for me, I don't think there's any fate bad enough for those people who try to profit from something like this.
I mean, you call them parasites. There's many more adjectives I could add to that. They seem to be abating, but I will say this. The FBI, it's now being reported, has received 1,500 tips, Matt, since Savannah put out her messaging yesterday. And I just wondered, is that because it's now $1 million reward and suddenly people have a conscience? Or is that because the eyeballs are back because that was a big story and it made a lot of press?
I mean, again, I want to give the benefit of the doubt to anybody who'd call in and think that they're I think that it got, the $1 million maybe got another news cycle out of it and reminded people like, hey, we're still looking, maybe you got something to help. So I want to interpret that the best way. But I think anybody with actual information that's willing to share it would have revealed it a lot earlier. I mean, the longer these things go.
Or is it possible, because I've spoken with people about this before, some folks that were willing to turn him in were too terrified about their own security and could not afford to move their families or secure themselves. And now with $1 million, they can.
Yeah, maybe. I'm skeptical on that one.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to have to worry about this guy if the FBI gets him. He's over and out if they can put together a good enough case. So no, I don't think so. I'm skeptical that it maybe. I mean, look,
for Macho,
you never know. Every one of these cases is different, and I pray to God that I'm wrong about everything. And this poor woman is still alive, and somehow they've managed to keep her alive, and she'll be freed. But look, I mean, I've been on record on your show before. I think she was dead inside the house.
Thanks, Boo.
That's always been my thought. But I see these cases through a very jaded lens of 21 years of homicide and sexual assault. So,
yeah, well, you've seen a lot. There's to the tipsters who, like you mentioned, they're well-meaning. They want to help.
He is.
Matt Ruiz from Fox News reported from Fox Digital that a neighbor of
I don't know if I've told you guys this before, but I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard this, but when I got Otis, he was just like I got him like he was like 8 weeks old. He was very young. And that's Otis's father, Macho, who lived in a cage for many, many hours a day. And he was a puppy mill dog. He was used to breed. And I adopted him because I felt terrible for him. And the guy was like, he was getting rid of him. So he was very upset. He was a very upset puppy for a long time. And now he lives here. And he's he's imprinted on me. He loves his home. And he's just the sweetest thing. He's a pain in the ass, but he's very sweet.
Nancy Guthrie said that she saw a man who quote unquote didn't fit in the community.
He's very happy. When I first got him, he was overweight. He was in bad health. He wasn't assimilated to people, and I was even told, don't get in his face. Don't go near his face. He'll bite you. And as you can see, he absolutely does not bite me. I take his fat little face and I just kiss him. And he loves it.
Community walking near the missing woman's home in January, a couple weeks before, and said he didn't have your typical walking gear on. He had his hat pulled really far over his eyes. If that was a tip and you were looking at it, what's your lens?
That's probably some well-meaning, very nice person who wants to help, and that's the best they got. And when that is the latest tip that's getting reported, we're officially at the bottom of the barrel.
He sleeps right up next to my face. And every night when I'm like laying there, he crawls up, plops down, looks at me, and he has a smile on his face. Like he smiles. It's the cutest thing.
But look, I've had cases again, on my Nairi case that you remember, we had nothing.
Macho he took a bite of my chapstick yesterday. Like I was doing the chapstick and then he bit it. So I had to get a new chapstick now.
And my cops were doing a canvas. This is a kidnapping with a man who was sexually mutilated in the desert. He's a marijuana dispensary owner. and horrific case. And a canvas is kind of it's semi-desperate when essentially you just send explorer scouts and police officers, usually the young ones, out to knock on every neighbor's door and just hope you get something. And that one, they knocked on a woman's door who's like, I mean, she's a hero, so I don't want to belittle her by the comparison, but I just think of Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched, the lady that's always looking out her window. We had one of those. This woman was absolutely awesome. And the cops are like, hey, did you happen to see anything? And she said, as a matter of fact, I did. I saw a white truck, 3 boys in workman's gear that didn't look like it had ever been used.
No, it wasn't cherry chapstick.
And they're like, please tell us, you can give us a description of the truck. And she's like, well, I've got the license plate. Would that help? And it broke our case wide open. So you never know, every once in a while you'll get that tip and you hit the home run, case gets solved, bad guys get arrested. And but again, the arrest isn't the end of this. They have to be prosecuted. And
so the reason that he was just cuddling the way that he was because he was out in the living room and I had shut my door and he was at the door and he tries to be patient and he starts growling. I can hear him through my headphones. He'll start growling. And then all of a sudden, when he's just had enough, he just starts going, rah, 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 rah. I mean, just incessantly. So then you open the door, he runs in and he's like, pick me up. And then I pick him up for a minute and then he's fine.
The prosecution has to withstand appellate scrutiny. And that means that decisions now need to be correct. They need to
Otis just does whatever he does.
They need to conform to the sacrosanct constitutional rights of whoever this person is going to be. And one day this case is going to be solved. Okay, hopefully it's tomorrow, maybe in a year, maybe it's in 5 years. One day this case is going to be solved. And decisions have to be made today. In fact, starting 4 weeks ago, that don't screw up the prosecution so that person is held accountable. There's justice for the family, and they are never given the opportunity ever again to hurt anybody else. And that depends on the integrity of the prosecution.
To that end, I should also tell you that Fox is reporting today that the Pima County Sheriff's Department reported no activity at the house today. And yet our very eyes, we're seeing, a half dozen people in blue suits, and also Enton telling us that one of the people who was there was actually a Pima County homicide detective. So after that, Pima County Sheriff's Office said that it had no press conferences planned. It will now be limiting its updates to media about the Guthrie case. And here's the quote.
Well, I've always had rescue dogs. And then when I bought Otis, and he wasn't cheap, and I actually felt guilty about it. Even though, I love Otis so much and all that, but then I figured that I could try to rid some of my guilt by adopting his dad. And I don't know if I helped my guilt, but I did.
Daily update.
I did increase my pain in the ass meter, but he's very lovable.
The Pima County Sheriff's Department PIO team has been distributing updates to the media on an almost daily basis. At this time, we will limit further updates to instances when new information warrants release. So now suddenly we're not.
Otis is blocking him from jumping on the bed.
Not even going to get the, the printed statements anymore.
No, it's like that old statement, believe me and not your damn lying eyes, right? And by the way, Brian's a friend of mine. Brian's reporting on this, I think, has been absolutely stellar.
Great.
Look, the problems on this one, and I've had cases where I butted heads with the media, and now I kind of work in the media, I guess. The problems on this case have never been the media. The problem on this case is the leadership. And look, in fairness, these cases can be very difficult. They can be difficult to solve, and they can take a long time. When reporters are saying we've had the most activity ever, you got feds rolling in their suits, you got somebody in the garage, everybody's outside doing that, and the same day you get you get yet another contradictory statement from the sheriff's department saying,
no activity.
Nothing happened today. It's like, dude, we know stuff happened. And just every time they do it, that's an unforced error. And every day it seems like we got something else. It is, and I don't want to be too harsh again. I really don't, but it is amateur hour with the sheriff's department. And that doesn't mean if we had a real pro in there that they would have made an arrest, but it sure would increase public confidence in the integrity.
Otis is the alpha. No, I don't know. They take turns.
Of this investigation, which is critical.
There's no alpha. They're both dorks.
For public confidence in the integrity eventually of a prosecution. Because
Otis is 4, Macho 7.
Because if you lose that, you're going to lose the case, and then this guy gets out and does it to somebody else. This is a public safety issue, and of course he's not doing any more press conferences because he doesn't want to be grilled anymore on going to basketball games, 5 days after this poor woman goes missing.
Yeah, that's true. Otis, I got that name from the Andy Griffith show, The Drunk. I don't know. I thought it was funny. And then Macho came with his name. El Macho. All right, let's finish this.
Or whatever other questions, or I guess you'd have to read the DNA report to answer questions about whether or not this poor woman's DNA is on those gloves. And by the way, I that's about the time that I hung it up and I couldn't watch anymore, Ashley. So there are people who definitely know the details of this thing more than me, but all that hullabaloo about those gloves, and it turned out that was nothing. And you and I talked about this, and I told you that every time you do a canvas, you always find gloves, always. There's gardening gloves, there's bikers gloves, there's Central Park right now is filled with frozen gloves, one glove. That's just the nature of the beast on these things. And I guarantee they found gloves in the neighbors' yards, and, gloves that gardeners have used, and workmen have, roofer gloves. There's all kinds of gloves out there in the world. Every one of them, you're going to get DNA in them. And virtually none of them are probably going to have anything to do with this case.
Today, Brian Enton said that at least one person who was on the property today with that big group of folks that all showed up, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the sheriff's homicide detective, one of them was seen wearing gloves. Does that sound normal to you, that if they're just doing this canvas, they would have gloves on?
Yes. Okay. Every time, and look, this is this is kind of funny. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this on air, but HBO optioned my book, right? So
yes, they do look alike. Although Otis is taller and a little thinner.
In working with the writer who's trying to develop a screenplay, and hopefully they buy the rights. Keep your fingers crossed for me. But great writer, and he wanted to know what actually happens when you go to a murder scene. And you go to the yellow tape, you sign in so they can keep track of everybody, and then you put on nitrile is what we would use, nitrile gloves. Everything, so your DNA doesn't wind up on anything that you touch inside. You also put little paper booties over your shoes to ensure that, number one, you're not tracking anything from the outside into a crime scene. But number two, some of those crime scenes with viscera and blood, you don't want any of that stuff in your own kitchen. So yes, it's totally normal. Those gloves would be on. And then depending on the sensitivity of the case, sometimes we would mask up. Sometimes you put on the little hat thing, just to make sure, and if you're a police officer or prosecutor doing homicide cases, you have to submit your DNA for CODIS so that it can be eliminated, if you breathe. And some people are what are known as shedders, Ashley, where they just seem to leave a lot of DNA. Really? And some people aren't. Yeah. We had a CSI guy in Irvine, a great guy, real professional, but just whatever it was about his body, we thought we had a serial killer as DNA was coming up, because we kept getting unknown male DNA at a bunch of different scenes, but it made no sense because one was like a 7-Eleven robbery, another was a domestic murder where we had a confession from the husband. Like, it didn't make any sense that we had unknown male DNA until somebody was like, wait a minute. And we tested him, and it was, I'll leave his name out, but it was his DNA. And he would mask up. He was aware of it. Like, especially after that became an issue, his DNA still kept turning up. It's just one of those things. Some people shed, and they call them shedders, just a ton of DNA.
It's disgusting.
And other people just don't. It's a quirk of organic chemistry.
Matt, as we've been recording, this is just in, according to Fox, from the Pima County Attorney's Office. Quote, veteran prosecutors from the Pima County Attorney's Office continue to work with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office regarding the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. I think this is a response from rumors that maybe the county attorney was on scene today.
Or she's watching your show, actually, and wanted to respond to the heat. Look, the comments about, she said that they can't comment, they have ethical provisions against commenting regarding the details of the case. That is true. And they have to be very careful not to do that, once again, in order to preserve the integrity. However, we're 4 weeks into this, and I hope, again, I don't know what's been going on behind the scenes. I hope that the local prosecutors who were involved, the experienced homicide prosecutors from that county, should have been involved that night. And I hope that's the case. I have no information that it is. So it looks like the people that showed up today were in fact feds. That's been confirmed. I don't know one way or another, but it looks like they're denying that those were the local prosecutors. So I don't know.
Or maybe there was somebody there from the county attorney, because she's not confirming or denying either.
They need to take an active role in this. And like I said, hopefully that's been happening behind the scenes, but we just haven't heard or seen anything indicating that. So hopefully, maybe it's like a duck, all calm on the surface and under the water, the part we can't see. Maybe her office has been working really hard. I hope that's the case. Otherwise, the Guthrie family has been disserviced, in my opinion. You need vertical prosecution on a case like this. I mean, you need prosecutors assigned to that case on the ground from the very beginning. And this is the first peep I have heard from this DA a month into this. So, hopefully she's been quietly working behind the scenes. I hope so. But I wouldn't be surprised by anything from Pima County officials at this point.
I learn so much every time I talk to you. And oftentimes it's something like this that I didn't expect. Matt, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and for your expertise.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for letting me vent. I'm just frustrated with this case. So I hope I didn't offend anybody. Again, all just my opinion, not throwing shade on anybody or casting suspicions or aspersions on anybody except
for a little shade.
Maybe the sheriff.
You're not alone.
Okay, well, there you go. So at least he admits it.
Yeah.
I know you're not alone.
Anybody except not throwing shade on anybody or casting suspicions or aspersions on anybody except maybe the sheriff.
You're not alone.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe.
Yeah.
I know you're not alone. Thank you. So that's where.
I'm not sure. I think he's just an investigator, but, I'm not sure. I think he's just I think he's an investigator. Well, all right, guys. Been a little over 3 hours. I think he called it amateur hour, which is even worse. Yeah. Nanos the Thanos. He was definitely throwing shade. It happens. I got to go deal with these guys. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And hopefully there's big news tomorrow. We'll see. Seems like a little bit of a shoe drops every day. I'm going to be talking about the Sebastian Rogers case in the next day or so. I'm going to react to, I'll be back tomorrow. I'm still following this case. I have great hope. And as long as things, keep coming out, we'll keep covering it. So I appreciate you guys being here. So thank you very much for everything. See you guys tomorrow. Oh yeah. I'll be on Mr. East tomorrow. I'll post it before I go on. Yeah, but I'll be on there. All right, guys. Good night. I will post where you can find it as soon as it's out. Well,